Is it too late to tell you that I have diarrhea?
Welcome to Two on the Vine, where we shit ourselves indiscriminately over video games.
Indiscriminately, but we do it in a sing-songy fashion.
Yep. So E3 has come and kind of gone. I guess just as day one came is when it went for me, as far as I'm concerned. Are you sick of the whole day -1, day zero shenanigans? Shouldn't they just call it day one from the first day?
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking that too. The day zero thing is just a way to, I guess, say, listen, we're starting, but we're not starting yet. The show floor is not open. And it should still just be called day one because we got
Yeah.
two major conferences on the very first day of E3, which was day zero. Weird.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was a joke. I thought people were joking when they said that the first day was day -1, and then that's
Yeah.
what they. But they actually did that, and I can't even justify why that would be necessary. I understand you do like the soft hitters first. EA, Microsoft. They could be just pre-show for the meat of it.
Sure, yeah. The meat was lean this year. Actually, no, I wouldn't even say. I would say that the meat was pretty fatty. If I could sum up E3 in like a few sentences or a few words, there would be lots of gun shoot.
Yes.
Let's see. Awkward stairs, and not stairs like that you climb up, but just like looking into the distance. And some awkward stairs. I'm sure there were some
Yeah.
stairs in the games. And I would also say that there were a lot of remixes of popular songs to unfitting visuals.
Yeah.
So that's my summary of E3 this year.
That's kind of what we've come to expect, but there were some changes too, which we'll talk about. So the format tonight, we're going to jump into it. Unfortunately, no green light guest this time, but we'll make up for it for the next episode, promise. We have a lot to talk about tonight, so we're going to do roughly 20-minute segments on each of the six main hitters. I count six. Do you count six?
Yes.
Six
Yeah.
fingers. Okay. So, first up, are you ready?
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1, give me a 5-word sentence to sum up EA Games Conference. 3, 2, 1, go.
Lots of weed and bullets.
Lots of weed and bullets. Nice. That sums up EA, I think. So moving on to Microsoft. Or no. No, Bethesda.
Ubisoft.
You
Oh, Bethesda. I forgot about Bethesda. That's a whole other conference there, huh?
Yeah, I got it up here. But anyway, so seriously though, is there anything in EA that grabbed you by the cojones that you wanted to
No.
talk about? I think Mass Effect is interesting. Have you ever played a Mass Effect game?
No.
You should play
I
one.
haven't.
You should play one. You should play Mass Effect 2.
I know they're big games, and I'm sure I would like them. And you hear that kind of excuse a lot. Like, I'm sure I would like it. I just don't have the time.
Yeah,
Like, for
it is
example,
time consuming. So,
I just, I wanted to start The Witcher 2 weeks ago,
oof.
and I've like been afraid to click the button
Witcher
because
3.
anytime I'm home, yeah, anytime I'm home and I want to play a game, I tend to play a game that's like maybe a 30-minute interval of gameplay, and then I can stop and then actually work on something. But with Witcher and Mass Effect, I know that I would spend many hours. So I would never discount the Mass Effect series. It looks cool. It looks right up my alley. I'm a Star Trek fan, Star Wars fan, so I would love it. But just haven't jumped into it. The trailer did look cool. There was a Shrek in it, and that was cool.
Yep.
And overall, that was something that piqued my interest. I mean, their Battlefield 1 definitely looks more interesting than any of the modern shoot space. John shoot space, man. I shoot. I'm so done with that. And it's like these futuristic warriors with like tech arrows and machine guns. It's getting like Call of Duty is now in space.
Yeah.
and it's like it's been evolving to this futuristic, like it went from World War II to like modern times, back to World War II for a minute. And I'm kind of like bored of that theme for shooting.
Uh-huh.
So seeing Battlefield 1 get kind of creative with World War 1 and the destructive environments and the blimps and the Zeppelins, well, one blimp. That was cool, and I really enjoyed watching Snoop Dogg smoke weed while playing it.
Yeah. I think most things are enhanced by the DOWG and his dank kush. But
Right.
but if I were to recommend one Mass Effect game at some point in your life, I'm sure you would enjoy Mass Effect 2, very much so.
I've heard. That's
And
cool.
that one I imagine could be done in about 20 hours. But I think you'd get a really good time out of it. I think you'd enjoy it.
A modest
As for
length of time.
Battlefield 1, I agree with you 100%. It's kind of weird when we see a World War shooter and say that's fresh because we see so
know.
many sci-fi adaptations at this E3 especially. There's sci-fi all over the place, which for me, my sci-fi boner can't be contained. You can sell me on literally any franchise by saying it's like this but sci-fi. That's how much I'm into the theme. That being said, I actually kind of agree with you. It's really all over the place. Like all over E3 is just sci-fi. Which,
Well, what'd you think of Titanfall 2? It's like Call of Duty, but sci-fi.
see, here's the thing. I always want to like mech games because the mechs are badass. In my opinion, at least. I might as well be 6 years old. But I can never get into them. I don't know why. Like Mech Warrior, the first Titanfall, Hawken, stuff like that. Xenoblade Chronicles X. I can't get into them. I don't know why. Other than Xenogears, it's like the only one I can think of. But I have hopes for it. I've heard that Titanfall was it died too soon, is what I heard. Is that it's a great game, and I'm excited for the second one. So that would be, I think, a good one for me to get into. How do you feel about FIFA 17 in space?
Oh, well, let me tell you something. The realism and actually going on a journey from a poor country boy into a famous soccer star, football star is my dream. And I want to, at the end of it, go into space with ragdoll physics on the frost iron. What is their engines called? Flare? Flare iron.
The Frozone.
The
Frozone engine.
It seems like one of the things that they've been like talking about, Frostbite it's called.
Frostbite, yes.
It's like, here's this thing, okay? Here's this thing. This year, it's all about, here's the thing, and check it out on Frostbite.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's fine. It looks nice.
It means nothing, though. Like, when they, most, like, 95% of the time when someone says, check it out now on this engine, unless they can explain to the layman why that engine is important, chances are that's going to mean nothing. Like, now on the Frostbite engine. I'm just like, okay. Like, an engine's an engine. I'm sure it's great. And I'm sure there are a lot of reasons it's great and a lot of improvements I could probably spot myself if I were to compare the two. But just saying that by itself, it doesn't tell me shit. I wish it did. Because maybe I could appreciate those announcements more. But, yeah.
I mean, you might appreciate the pixels more. I feel like every time... I know you can do the research and find out what other games are on Frostbite. I know you can do the research, and I haven't done the research on Frostbite. The games look great, but I will say, in all honesty, the EA conference was, for me, and again, keep in mind, everyone listening, these are our opinions. Me and KY like the games we like. I don't like sports games really. I'm getting a little sick of bullet shoot in space. And like cover shooters, so stuff like that. Like if you like those things, that's great. And E3 means different things to different people. So that's why I personally feel like you have to find out what's important to you. And if FIFA having a new story mode and being on the Frostbite engine is badass for you, great. That means nothing to me. I don't play FIFA, so for me, on a whole, EA was not just in terms of games. Battlefield was the thing that caught my interest, and I enjoyed looking at it. Titanfall did nothing for me because, again, I'm just seeing so many Call of Duty, tropes with mechs, and that's okay. But I'm good. I don't need that. And Titanfall 1, I'm a little more cynical about because it was billed as this like game changer, but it basically took the Duty formula and applied it to mechs, and you
Smeared
know
it all over mechs.
it smeared it on mechs, and then the community pretty much died. But it didn't have a single player. Now it's getting a single player, so maybe that'll keep the game relevant and interesting for new players. Who knows?
And I always felt that single player campaigns in things like Call of Duty were very underappreciated, especially when Call of Duty blew up with the first Modern Warfare game as like this multiplayer thing, and that became the big focus. If you ever go back and just play through a Call of Duty campaign, they're actually really good. They're pretty fun.
They are fun, and they're more fun co-op.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I enjoy them, but I'll tell you what though, KY, after playing the new Doom and
Oh, yeah.
really enjoying the single player,
I've been
finding all
playing
the
it too.
secrets.
Yeah.
Right, and the worlds are the levels are open, and you don't have to cover. In fact, the game rewards you for being ballsy, because when you go in there and you get those glory kills, you get more health. And when Call of Duty, if you go past the line where
Yeah.
you say you didn't kill the 15 enemies you had to kill, you will instantly get rained upon with bullets, which is more realistic. But I don't know if I find that more fun. Otherwise,
Definitely
I'd
not.
probably be playing more Call of Duty campaigns.
I'm
But Doom, I had so much fun with.
Yeah, but in the last episode, we got your impressions, and because I asked about it, but I've been playing it since then. I got gifted Doom for my birthday, so I've been playing through that, and I feel you 100%. And I was
glad.
kind of, I don't know what the right word is. I was just kind of,
Reticent.
yeah, like just kind of like, all right, this looks pretty cool. Like I would watch a stream and I'd be like, I don't like how I'm seeing the same glory kill animations like 10 times in less than a minute.
Yep.
But the
Felt
thing
same way.
is, that's when you're watching it, and once you're in the game, it's just so different and it's so fun. It's so fast paced and great. I actually went back and played the first Doom, like the original, the mid '90s Doom, for the 1st time, and then played through most of that campaign, and then I went forward and played the new Doom, so I could just appreciate it that much more. And oh
Yep.
man, it's like they took everything that was great from the original game, like the speed, the action, the different guns, the levels, the
Level
intricate
design, the
level
secrets.
design, the secrets,
Yeah.
and then they mashed them up with the things that really work about
Yes.
modern shooters, like
Yes.
the upgrade paths, the kind of different play styles, the excellent production values, just everything that makes the new ones good without any of the stuff that makes new shooters bad. It was just like, yes, you know.
It
Yes.
really, it was so good. And I did the same thing, KY. I went back and played. I'm still streaming Doom 64 at the moment, and
Okay.
I loved Doom 64 when I was growing up, and revisiting it now, it's great. It's maybe not as good as Doom 1. It has some level design issues, but overall, it made me the new Doom made me want to go back and play Doom 64. It made me play Doom WADs. I had a lot of fun with Doom. So when I see the single player, a lot of things that I saw at E3 this year, not just for EA, but for the Titanfall 2 campaign, and a lot of the demos they showed with like Microsoft. I won't get to that right now, but Gears of War, for example, the cover-based shooter. It's like, here's this linear path. Here's some story. Here's some men screaming. Here's a bunch of like action set piece things that happen. A bunch of things fall from the sky, and then you run, you shoot them, and then you grab someone's hand while falling off of a cliff. And then the camera, it gets slow and dramatic, and then they pull you up, and you've learned a new life lesson. And it's like, the thing about that kind of thing is so many of the demos at E3, I may have been impressed by that a few years ago, but I'm starting to lose a lot of interest in presentations like that, where it reminds me too much of that linear cover-based shooter campaign.
Yeah.
Whereas a game like Doom, and going back and playing the old Doom stuff, and even thinking about Quake, I want to play the new Wolfenstein soon, newish Wolfenstein. That kind of stuff made me realize, like, I want a more open-ended, badass shooter right now. I'm really feeling that kind of gameplay.
Yeah.
And so the Titanfall 2 single-player demo may have looked very impressive from a technical standpoint. Same for the Infinity Warfare single-player demo. I mean, they looked, production values were insanely high and very like interesting in that sense, visually and viscerally.
Yeah.
But I'm good.
It's clear that they design those things with wanting you to experience a very specific thing. They want you to look at very specific things. They want you to shoot from very specific points at very specific targets. It's all very funneled, you know, and I don't think it always...
it can be fun.
Yeah, it can be, but
Yeah.
I agree with you that I prefer something like Doom where they put a lot in it, and the game is okay if you don't see everything. The developers are okay with you not seeing every single thing they put into it, because someone will, and it's up to you to find those things. Whereas the other games,
Yes.
it's almost like insecure from a design standpoint. Like they want to make sure that you see every single cool thing that they put in the game, or else they will have failed. You know.
It's like an amusement park ride in some ways. There's
Yes.
no real sense of danger. You're just
Yeah.
on the ride, looking at the things that are presented to you and shooting. And that's, you know, again, I played a lot of Call of Duty campaigns and Halo campaigns, and even the Halo stuff can be a little more open-ended, but it still funnels you from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I had a lot of fun with that. It's just at the moment I'm understanding, and Doom isn't the only reason I feel this way. I was just fatigue in general, but Doom helped me realize why, for example, Titanfall 2 did nothing for me, whereas I watched Battlefield 1. You're in this giant destructive environment. You get these planes, bayonets, you have all these things like mustard gas, you have grenades, and the environment just gets destroyed, and you see like zeppelins falling into the, you know, the town, and the town below gets fucked up, and the skeleton of the zeppelin remains.
Yeah.
I thought that was like, oh, it looks like a giant like battlefield, and I was like, oh.
Ding,
So
ding, ding.
I'm not like dying to play Battlefield 1 at the moment, but let's just say for me, it was a pretty good demonstration, especially Wiz Khalifa and Snoop like sneaking a little bit of a cheeky smoke. I wonder how they got away with that.
Yeah.
I loved all the celebrities that just didn't give a shit. They didn't know how to play.
Yeah.
They would show Terry Crews with the mouse and keyboard. He'd be looking down at the keys to see where the S was so he could walk backwards. You know,
Yeah.
Good shit.
Yeah. So how would you grade EA's conference?
I might give it a pear out of an orange.
Pear out of an orange. Excellent. You ready to move on to the next one?
Well, I wanted to talk for a minute about a few things like Star Wars. E3
Okay.
showed Star Wars.
Sure.
EA. They just showed some development stuff, which they probably would have been better off not showing. But they wanted to tell everyone, listen, we know you like the new movie. We're working on stuff for it.
Yeah.
And I still am not crazy about EA having the Star Wars property.
Yeah.
And Battlefront did nothing for me. You know, it was a good demo when I played the beta, but I'll say I couldn't see myself spending more than 10 minutes or, okay, 10 hours.
Yeah.
10 hours. But, you know, the new content for it, it does look like they're trying to beef it up a little bit, which is cool. And I hope that whatever Visceral's working on for their new developed Star Wars game, I hope it's good. So I just wanted to say that the games I'm sure will look great, and I hope they play great too. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have nothing else to say about EA really. Mass
Neither do
Effect looked okay.
wait. One more thing. It was I'd say of all the conferences, EA was the most awkward.
Yeah.
The jokes
were
awkward
bad.
stare.
The game lineup was It was just I think it was my least favorite out of the bunch. So I'm kind of glad we're getting it out of the way. Man, that would be a downer to end on. So
I know. I hesitate to use the word cringe, but I because it's so overused and people use it in the weirdest situations these days. But I'd say that the EA conference was the hardest to watch in terms of presentations, presenters, and just awkward attempts at humor and jokes and things that it just fell flat. And the announcers during the Battlefield celebrity fight were just awkward and weird.
Yep.
So no thanks.
No thanks. All right. So did you want to go chronological, or did you want to save the quote-unquote big three for last?
Let's do Bethesda next. Chronological would be cool.
Okay. Didn't Microsoft come before Bethesda?
I believe it was EA and then Bethesda later that night. And then Microsoft.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right. Okay. Yeah. Got it. So Bethesda. Hey, let me restart my timer here. Just making sure we're being strict about this.
We're on time. We're on track.
Yeah. So Bethesda. First off, the big one, arguably, was Dishonored 2. Did you play the first Dishonored?
I played about an hour and a half of it, and I enjoyed my time with Dishonored. It
Wait,
was a good game.
hang on. I'm sorry, I skipped one. The biggest one was Just Dance 2017 with circus animals like lions and giraffes and clowns.
What? Did that happen?
You don't remember this?
No.
Yeah.
Did that really happen?
Wait, did you? Are you joking with me? Or are you being serious?
No.
You might have blanked it out. You might have just totally blanked it out because
my brain washed this out of my memory.
That was the opening. Believe it or not, the whole conference opened with people in clown suits and animal suits just dancing, professional dancers dancing to Just Dance music.
That was Bethesda.
Wait, was it? Oh,
or was that Ubisoft?
No, shit. I'm thinking of Ubisoft. Holy fuck, I'm so sorry.
I would remember clowns.
We'll talk about the clowns later. Shit, we'll save that mess for Ubisoft then. I fucked up.
That's okay.
That's on me.
No,
that's on me. So Dishonored 2, I have not played the first Dishonored yet either. Did you say you'd played it?
I played it for about an hour and a half.
What'd you think of the first one?
It was good.
Yeah?
I wish I played the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a good take on the stealth kind of open-ended combat system with a lot of cool powers, and it was a good. I will at some point I might end up actually playing through that whole game because I did enjoy it, and the trailer for the second one, all the stuff they showed for the second one looked really nice.
Excellent. Yeah. The coolest part, and I think most people seemed to be the consensus, was the kind of the backwards in time shards that was rendering both scenes at the same time. You could see the past.
So fucking cool.
Yeah. Clearly that's gonna be just for designated segments. There's no way they made that ability usable anywhere. If they did, then my mind is blown. But I'm pretty certain it's just for key parts in the game. But even still, it's really goddamn cool. That I can't wait for that.
Really unique mechanic that I would enjoy. If probably on the next round of systems, you might see that in like an open-ended setting. But for now, it's just
they would have to design. I feel like to make a whole game about that would have to be like the only key mechanic in the game. You know,
right?
Just because that would be so daunting of an undertaking to design that. But that was awesome. The story was intriguing. The characters seemed intriguing. The world seemed intriguing. It was better than Columbia. It reminded me of what I wanted Columbia to kind of be in a way. Obviously, Columbia was more of a caricature more than anything, but Dishonored 2 gave me some vibes from that while being very much its own thing. So that was nice. I don't know. I kind of need to go back and play Dishonored now that I saw that trailer for 2 because it looks really good.
It's dope.
It's dope, man. Prey looked awesome as well. As you know.
Well, it's a reworked sequel, which I didn't know. Actually, I just found that out from that little thing we're reading. But honestly, I thought that it was a totally new thing that they just said, you know what? We don't care that Prey's got a previous name.
Yeah.
Because it was so incredibly different from the first Prey and what I thought Prey 2 would be. So
yes. It clearly was not originally meant to be a Prey sequel / reboot, but again, my sci-fi boner came through, and I was like, "Yep, I need this game." It was kind of cool,
very interesting.
Groundhog's Day style, him waking up over and over. It looks like it's got a pretty mindfucky, or at least an attempt at a mindfucky plot. So I'm excited for that. Now, as long as it doesn't turn into, shoot alien in space, the whole time.
Right.
But
over and over again. Yeah. I mean, shoot alien in space is fine if it's done with some tact.
Yeah.
But this game doesn't look like it has anything to do with Prey, and that's why I was so confused. That's my only negative. I actually liked the first Prey, and I didn't play all of it, but I love that intro. I love the theme. I like what it could have been, Prey 2. But this looks interesting in its own way. I'm just kind of, I guess they wanted the brand recognition,
Yeah.
or they designed it as a Prey game from the start as a rework. I don't know. Whatever the case, it looked all right.
It's almost like the Cloverfield effect. Have I told you about the Cloverfield effect?
I think we talked about it, but why don't you
So
refresh?
so there's a newer movie called what
12
was it?
Cloverfield
12
Lane.
Cloverfield Lane. Which I actually enjoyed. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Did you see it?
No, I've heard good things though. I want to see it.
I liked it. John Goodman was excellent, as of
He's
course.
great.
And it was good overall. That being said, I feel the movie, and I've argued with people on this, so there's certainly going to be some disagreement, but I feel the movie had almost jack shit to do with Cloverfield. And I almost feel like the reason they chose that name was because they knew that despite being a good movie, no one would have been interested if they didn't put a title like that, like try to connect it, because that caused some buzz, you gotta admit. I think if they had
Did.
called the movie The Cellar or something generic like that, people probably would have just panned it, even though it was
Sure.
interesting and pretty good movie. I think having that name brought a lot of people in because they had to see what it was like, even though it had very little to do as a Cloverfield kind of spiritual successor.
Yeah. I think JJ went on record saying he was hoping the Cloverfield name could turn into like a Twilight Zone kind of moniker where
Really?
they slap Cloverfield onto a bunch of stories that have a common theme of, fear or terror or weird paranormal sci-fi kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think that makes sense. Like, I mean, from a business standpoint, I totally understand that brand recognition is huge, and people that make video games also are businessmen. Same thing for movies. You have to put, if you're putting a certain amount of money into a thing, time, effort, money, you want to make sure, or damn near get as close to making sure you can get your money back as possible.
Yeah.
And people have families to feed that work on these things, so I totally understand it. And it doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would.
It doesn't.
When I first considered it.
It doesn't bother me. I'm just saying I think that's why. And it's the same with Prey.
Oh, yeah,
is
totally.
kind of what I was
Totally.
getting at, was that I wonder if maybe they had chosen that name, or they had chosen that name, realized there was an old series, said, hey, wait, there could be a connection here, and said, yep, that was intended. I don't know. That's
Remember
probably
Star
me
Fox
being...
Adventures?
Yeah. And that was a different game, too, wasn't it? Like, didn't it have some crappy
Dinosaur
title?
Planet.
Dinosaur Planet, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's fine. I mean, Prey could be good, and it might have little to do with the previous game. Maybe it's just a reimagining, a reboot with the same name.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. Whatever.
It looks good.
It
That's
looks
all
alright.
that matters to me.
Yeah, sure.
Made
I
by
agree.
Arcane, the same people who are making Dishonored 2. So seems they're wrapping up Dishonored 2 and going full steam on Prey, hopefully. So,
Yeah.
what do you
They
think
can do
of Quake Champions?
Well, I am a huge Quake fan. I played a lot of Quake 1 and some Quake 2 and more Quake 3. So
Uh huh.
I like Quake. I like the return to the arena-based shooters. I like what Bethesda did with Doom. So I want them to do a similarly good job for Quake. I want some nice, fast arena-based combat with like interesting weapons and cool environments. I don't know if we're gonna get any of that, because all I saw were 4 like weird-looking characters, which is fine for Quake. I like that.
Yep.
Just shooting each other in a pre-rendered like kind of scene.
Uh huh.
The thing that worries me but also excites me both at the same time are the character traits, where each character has their own abilities and feel, and they specialize in different things. That adds a little bit of a spice to the game that I think might be interesting, and it's also kind of, I guess, a result of people in the chat were saying the Overwatch effect,
Yeah.
which everyone's got to be their own character. I hope that is a cool thing, and I hope it can be turned off
Yes.
for more classic arena combat. But I'm excited. I'm ready for it. Let's do it. We got another Quake Arena. I'm ready for
Down.
it. Let's make it good.
Yeah.
How about you?
I played a lot of Quake 1 as well growing up, but me being a weird kid and always into, weird tastes with music, games, I'm always the weirdo. Of course, I didn't play a lot of the campaign. I didn't play even a lot of just standard deathmatch. What I played the most of, I spent my time evenly between Putting in new skins, like designing character skins and slapping them on, being like, "Look, I'm Homer Simpson," you know, shit like
Good
that.
job.
And the other half of my time I spent mods or playing mods, like different game modes. The ones I remember most fondly were Team Fortress, like the
Hmm.
original Team Fortress, which
Yep.
was a mod of Quake 1.
Yep.
I played the crap out of that. And then Border 1. Have you heard of Border 1?
Nope.
So Border 1 was essentially, it's very politically incorrect, but it was a border patrol game where you had a team of illegal immigrants trying to cross the border, and then a small team of heavily armed border patrol whose only goal was to stop them from crossing the border. So the way you had, it was like 10-minute rounds. If the immigrants crossed the border even once, then they won, if I remember correctly. They did not have any weapons. They just had hatchets and a truck that would every couple of minutes cross through the map. So that you could try to hop on the truck. You could have some people hop on the truck and then have some others try to cross the border from a different point when, hopefully the patrol was distracted. Meanwhile, the patrol would have like rocket launchers and shotguns and whatever they needed, and it would just the immigrants would just infinitely respawn.
Holy
Um,
shit.
it was so much fun. Oh, and then
It
there
actually
was
does sound
yeah,
fun.
I think there was one player who was an MIB agent which was a play on Men in Black, the movie,
Right.
across
Right.
it, helping the aliens across the border, and they
Uh-huh.
would help the immigrants, and they would be lightly armed, so they'd have a little bit of utility. But man, even though that mode would need some reflavoring to get through today's, I guess socially adjusted climate, from a
Sure.
gameplay perspective, that mode was so fun. And I would love. So, what I'm getting at is that that's my Quake experience as a kid. And I hope that Quake Champions has mod support in that regards, like different game modes that people can program and set up. I'm not hopeful that they will, just based on the trailer and what they're going to try to shoot for in the limited time they have. But if I had a dream focus for Quake Champions, is that they have heavy modding support, because that's kind of what I was into when I played it as a kid.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that's the stuff that I enjoyed too with like Team Fortress Classic. So like I'm looking I found a video of Border 1. That's the name of the map.
Yes.
And yeah, it looks really absurdly amazing in its own way. But my Quake play wasn't too modded. But yeah, it could be good. I mean, again, Doom was done well. And speaking of Doom, that's getting some updates. It's
Uh-huh.
sad that we're not going to get single player updates, but they announced that Snap Map is going to get some good and much needed updates that will increase the palette of editing and also the weapons that you can use. And also there was a new Wolfenstein
The
that was
teaser.
teased.
Yep.
But yeah, Quake could be cool. Again, I want to be able to turn off the character stuff and just do classic. But if they do a good job with the new characters and the new abilities, then I think I will enjoy it a lot. I'm very excited about it.
How'd you feel about the screaming lady?
She was the star of the show all 3 days,
Yep. She
just
nailed it.
screaming at the most amazing and inopportune times.
My theory is that she was one of the couple of Elder Scrolls Online people in the audience. One of the few players of that game
Right.
was in the audience, and she was just losing her shit at all the Elder Scrolls Online announcements that were going on.
We are happy to announce that we have 7 million players of Elder Scrolls Online. Now, 6.5 million of those are NPCs in the game, but technically they are playing the game on our servers.
Yeah, they're simulated AIs playing our game.
Are
It
there
was
that
just
many people playing it?
no. There was, in fact, like just after they had said that, people were going on Steam actually finding metrics to back it up. They compared people just playing Skyrim, which right now concurrently it was like 25,000 at its peak right now, and that's how many years down the road now. Compared it to Elder Scrolls Online, which currently had I think 7,000 concurrent players, 6 or 7,000. Which if I wouldn't expect it to be 7 million concurrent players, because that wouldn't make any sense. But surely that number, if they actually had 7 million players, surely that number would be a little higher right now. If I were to pop
That's
in, see how many are playing.
totally inflated.
Yeah.
That's got to be like 7 million people have downloaded this game and started it once.
Yeah.
That's
The
what I
7
think.
million people have clicked on the download page, not
Right.
even necessarily downloaded the client. I mean, I guess for the people who are a fan of Elder Scrolls Online, I'm glad that they're continuing to support and do cool things. Because look at what happened with Final Fantasy 14. Like that was a pile of shit when it first came out.
And then
You know,
over the years, it became a thing. Yeah.
and then they had the reboot.
I know, motherfucker.
They had the Realm Reborn, and apparently it's really good. I've even been tempted to try the free trial a couple times if I valued my life. I value my life too much to not fall down that rabbit hole, but apparently it's great now. So who knows? Someday, maybe Elder Scrolls Online, if it keeps a cult following, they keep supporting it. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe one day they'll make a profit from it.
Anything
Good
is
for them.
possible. So, anything.
How about this? Well, here's something that's possible. Okay, a remaster that. Did anyone ask for this? Because it's a remaster coming to PS4, Xbox One. It's the Skyrim remaster, and I said in the chat that if they announced the Skyrim remaster, I would eat my sock, and then I rescinded that statement 3.7 seconds later. So I'm good. I'm good. But I was really, when people were like, Vinny, there's a rumor we're going to get a Skyrim remaster. I was like, what do you mean? It just came out. And then they announced it, and I was in awe of how unnecessary this thing is.
Well,
but it's happening, and that's my opinion on it. I think it's totally unnecessary. Not saying it looked bad. In fact, I know a lot of people use mods to make their Skyrim look like that or better. So part of me is like, okay, well, if I can get my Skyrim to look that good without having to go through mod downloading and mixing and matching and actually having official support, that's great. But it just seems like other people wanted Morrowind or Oblivion to be updated.
Absolutely.
Which is a bigger undertaking. Let's face it. That's a huge thing. Whereas Skyrim, they just have to increase the lighting and maybe the textures and the water effects, blah, blah, blah. And then they have something that they could repackage for
volumetric fog and god rays, and it's as good as new. But it's been more time that has passed since Skyrim came out compared to, say, Grand Theft Auto 5 when that was remastered.
Right. Or Last of Us.
Last of Us, I think, was mastered like a year and a half later, not even. So at least it's not the worst. But I do agree with you that I was just like, okay, I could do that with mods anytime I want. I've been able to do it with mods for years, and it might not look quite as good. But if it's a free update for people who already own Skyrim,
it is on the PC.
It is.
If you have all the DLC.
Oh crap. Okay, fair enough, I guess. But the only thing that I was like, all right, was when it said that consoles will have mod support. That was a little neat. Now it doesn't impact me, but at least someone who doesn't have their own PC, who's only been playing, the shitty PlayStation 3 version of Skyrim from when it first came out and has been logging hundreds of hours, that person is gonna have the time of their life with mods. So we have about
that's a nice announcement.
We have about 1 minute 15 seconds. Is there anything else you want to say about Bethesda?
Yeah, they had an overall okay conference. And by the way, just a final word about the Skyrim remaster. If I need to buy a few more DLC to get it, and I probably will when it comes out. I'll probably just get that last DLC. So again, it worked. I'm gonna end up buying more DLC to get it. So I mean, unnecessary, but still enticing in its own way.
Better than paying $60 for the whole remaster again,
Right. So that's good. And again, I guess the utility of it is the same where Last of Us was like, we're gonna release Last of Us for these new rounds. I feel like that was to entice new customers to get their game as opposed to the old customers. Like, because I don't think as many people would have bought a game a year and a half later that just had 4K or whatever, like extra textures.
Yeah.
But in Skyrim's case, it just feels like it feels like it's far enough away that it could have been Oblivion, but it's so close that it feels unnecessary. So it's in a weird spot. It just feels weird to have this particular game remastered. If it was like a year after for a new round of systems, maybe it would have been more understandable. Anyway, that said, it's fine. I'm okay with it. And the Fallout DLC actually looked pretty okay. Like the
Hmm.
machine stuff with the Rube Goldberg machines and
Oh yeah,
Nuka Land. Also, I might end up. I haven't played Fallout 4 in a while, but there's a DLC where you can experiment on
yeah.
your vault dwellers.
I liked
That
the
looks
whole build
interesting.
your own vault thing. We can talk about Fallout 4
Hmm.
for a couple minutes. We cut off EA early. Um, yeah, the whole build your own vault, make different rooms to do your own experiments thing, and go out and bring people from the wasteland to your vault. To me, that appeals so much more than the settlements. So much
Right.
more. Because to me,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
more in line with the theme. It feels like it's more part of the universe compared to just settlements, which you could put in any open world title.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, it would work just fine. You couldn't put vaults in any title without some heavy retheming, whereas in
Yep.
Fallout it fits. And I agree with you 100% that that looks cool.
That's the only DLC I've had interest in, and Nuka Land just looks fun, but I
It
might not
does.
even get that one. But making your own vaults, that's good choice. Good
I
choice.
like I
It just
liked
works.
the theme of the Nuke Land stuff too. I think it's interesting. It's better than like, look, another swampland, you know, because we got that with 3, and
Right.
Far Harbor, Far Harbor was
Bahama.
kind of like that as well, or the
How
same
about
kind of vibe.
I just want a Fallout Teletubby land, and that way Tinky Winky.
Hey, how you doing? It's me, Tinky Winky Teletubby. My pinky is stinky, and I'm wondering if you want to come, oh, you want to kill some rad roaches with me? Huh?
So
So what's next?
Bethesda's grade gets a stinky out of pinky.
Good. They weren't that bad. They did an okay job, and there was a little also the awkward meter. I would say wasn't too high for
No,
them either.
it wasn't bad at all. Nothing was as
Wasn't
bad
as
as
no.
E3 and maybe Microsoft
EA. Yeah.
or
We're both
EA.
calling EA E3.
Yeah,
It's
we've done that
amazing.
like 6 times.
Yeah.
Speaking of Microsoft, they're up next on the chopping block. So,
Okay. I watched
Microsoft.
most of them, and then I caught up. So you watched the whole thing, or
No, not at all. I watched
okay?
a handful of it. Um, there's isn't even too much I would that caught my eye really. Like there's the only two things that stick out clear in my mind are the hardware. They talked about a new Xbox One, Xbox Slim, and Xbox One S. Um, so a
Perfect.
more powerful
Scorpio.
Xbox, yeah, and a slim one. No surprise really, and it doesn't impact me because I'm never gonna buy an Xbone. I can't think of any
Yeah.
reason I ever would, other than maybe that Recore game, which is the other thing I was gonna talk about. Did you see the trailer for Recore, or did you see anything about
I'm
it?
watching it right now without the volume, and it's like machine animals that you get to corral. Kind of reminds me of that game for PS4.
Well,
Uh,
the
yeah.
folks making it are the same studio behind Metroid Prime, which to me normally I'm not very much an Allegiance person too often, but that entices me just because of
Metroid
how
Prime?
much Metroid Prime means to me. Yeah, it's Kaiji Inafune,
Oh,
and Metroid Prime Studio is making Recore.
why aren't they doing something for Nintendo? I thought they were working on a new Nintendo project. The retro. This isn't retro. This is just different people that.
Yeah. It says most of the team behind Metroid Prime or something like that. The
Oh, I see.
reveal because there's 2 trailers. There's a reveal one and then there's a gameplay one. The reveal trailer says at the beginning something like along the lines of Kaiji Inafune and the team behind Metroid Prime or something like that.
Gotcha.
So
Well, I'm looking at the trailer now, and it does look interesting. But it also, I don't know what I'm looking at.
yeah.
It looks interesting, but it's a third person like platformer with mechanical animal or corralling.
Yeah, well, each animal gives you different abilities. Like the cool spider thing will just fly from the edge of the screen to wherever you shoot your grapple. So even though that's
Okay.
purely just a flavoring thing, they could have just done a grapple and it would have worked fine.
Sure.
It plays into the theme. And you know me, once again, it comes back to sci-fi, which is to me the biggest theme of E3 this year is sci-fi. People love sci-fi right now. But otherwise, almost literally every single other thing they showed is just not relevant to me. Like Gears of War 4, not relevant to me. It's a cover shooter. Sea of Thieves. I don't care for the pirate stuff. Scalebound. Actually, I don't know anything about Scalebound. I didn't catch that one, so maybe I should go back and watch that. Final Fantasy 15. Interested, but again, not exclusive to Microsoft. Dead Rising 4. Zombies. Not interested. Just too oversaturated with zombies. Forza. Not interested. It's driving. I'm sure it's great, but it's not my thing. Halo Wars 2. Okay. Gwent. The Witcher card game could be cool, but just kind of underwhelming. State of Decay.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, speaking of Bethesda too, there was an Elder Scrolls card game. So now that Hearthstone is paved the way, every medieval thing has to have a card game. So we're gonna get card games for lots of stuff.
Hearthover Stone, the sci-fi experience. Speaking of which, I would love, because we have Elder Scrolls game, we have Gwent coming out, we have Hearthstone already. I want my goddamn sci-fi flavored one. I want fucking Neon Stone, Heroes of StarCraft. I would play the shit out of that. Oh, I want it. I want it.
When Gwent and the other thing become profitable and more developers see that a card game is the way to go, we're going to see like Halo cards. We're going to see the Division cards. Please, God, no. And we'll see plenty of futurist Call of Duty cards.
Yep.
Okay. Well, now this is getting scary, but I want to actually for a minute mention personal stake.
Okay.
So, for example, I have a PC that I like that's game worthy. I like PC games, so I'm interested in PC games. So, if a version of a game announced at E3 is coming out to PC, my interest is piqued. I have an Xbox One. I do not have a PS4. And I have the Nintendo stuff, and I plan to stick with Nintendo stuff. Hopefully, the NX won't disappoint. But anyway, that's my personal stake. So I don't have Sony gear. I have Xbox One. That said, I am still disappointed in the Microsoft conference. KY, what stuff do you own and not own?
In regards to consoles, you mean? Hardware?
Yes. So what can't you play that we see at E3? And you don't have an Xbox One, you said.
I cannot play any Xbox One exclusives, and that's about it. I own a PlayStation 4. I don't own a Vita, but I guess I don't even think they mentioned Vita once.
I didn't see a single.
I was listening for it, but I own a Wii U and a 3DS. I own a pretty good gaming computer. I own the Steam VR
and VR
or the Vive. Yeah. I own that.
I don't have VR, so that's another thing.
So there's that. But there's anything that's Xbox One exclusive, I can't play, which, Recore, that kind of bums me out a little bit, but I wouldn't buy an Xbox One for it.
But would you buy an Xbox One S?
Ooh. I would consider I'd consider the Slim if it's cheaper, which I think it is, right? It's $299 for the smallest hard drive, which is still like half a goddamn terabyte or something.
I think it's a full terabyte for just
for the smallest one, which fine with me. I know games are getting bigger and bigger, but even still, I'll play the whole the hard drive space Tetris game. I have no problem with that. That's not a huge deal.
Right. Same here.
But otherwise, not really. Nothing that I can think of on Xbox One. What about you? You don't have a PlayStation 4, do you?
I don't. So I don't have PS4. I don't have VR. So that's my personal stake. But I will say I want to talk about hardware for a minute, because I think Microsoft just did the most bizarrely questionable thing ever, which is at the beginning of the conference they announced the Slim, and it's nice looking, backwards compatible, plays everything. Okay. Then they announced that Windows 10 will be used for a number of Xbox One games. So even less reason to have an Xbox.
Yep.
But then at the end, they say that Project Scorpio, which is the next big Xbox product, like that will be really powerful, and it's going to redefine, all these developers that they have on board that definitely weren't paid to say how great it was. These developers are saying that it's going to be amazing, and it looks great, and it's going to be, defining hardware, and it's got like 8 FUPAs,
teraflops.
Flops. Yeah. It's got FUPAs.
Which on its own just sounds stupid. Do you think a teraflop would be like a neo-millennial slang for a piece of media that just totally fucking beefed it? like total commercial failure. Like, goddamn, Gears of War 4, what a fucking teraflop that game was. You know, that's how I perceive the word teraflop.
Yeah. So that's why to the casual consumer, they had to have a guy tell us that these are the highest quality pixels you would ever see. And then the meme was born about highest quality pixels. And I predict that 5 years from now, at whatever E3 we see, when whoever announces new hardware, the phrase highest quality pixels will be uttered by a number of people in the Twitch chat watching it.
Yep.
So I think that was the birth of a meme, and it made no sense. And I'm thinking that the word pixels makes sense to a lot of casual gamers. They've heard it. People that aren't maybe into computing, they know the word pixel. There's been a movie called Pixels, which let's never speak with that again, but there's been a lot of the pixel word thrown around. So I'm thinking that someone wrote a script, even though it made no fucking sense. A pixel cannot be higher quality. But anyway, the point is, it was announced, the Scorpio project was announced, and they said it was backwards compatible. So basically, you could get Project Scorpio next year, at the end of next year.
Yeah.
And you can then play the entire Xbox One library, or you can just play it on Windows 10. So the Xbox One S announcement just feels so redundant. It was such a bizarre and questionable choice by Microsoft to do that. It feels like they should have announced the One S and then sometime in like August or November announced next year, by the way, we're going to be revealing a new system.
Yeah.
But I guess the hype train needs to be built early. Unfortunately, I am not on that hype train because I don't care. But that's the hardware thing. It's just weird. And that's my thoughts on the Microsoft hardware announcements. As for games, I lost touch with Gears of War a long time ago. I played a few of them. They were enjoyable. And I just thought, again, on Rails demo looked the same. Graphics were nice and crispy, but it still looks like the same game as Gears of War 3 and 2 and 1. You know, shoot, cover, and then when you get out, you can use a saw blade machine. So did nothing for me. Sea of Thieves looked kind of interesting. It looked like the pirate theme could be fun. Mm-hmm. So I might actually check that one out, to be honest. I hope, Rare doesn't balls it up like they did Young Conquer. My favorite announcement at this E3 from Microsoft was the HoloLens. Remember how great the demonstration for the HoloLens was this year?
It was mind-blowing.
When they showed it?
Mind-blowing. But you there?
So where'd that... Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for a second, but you're good.
So where'd that technology go? How come we didn't see HoloLens at all?
It's, I assume it's just not far enough along yet, personally, because clearly that let's face it, I think we talked about it on the Vine last year, that was a crock. It was just
totally.
Flat out crock. That's what that was. It was crocodile. It was just a tech demo. There was no actual hardware. He was just wearing the stupid shades, and they rendered everything and rehearsed it really closely, and that's what that was, because that's what they hope it will be. And now, I don't know, maybe they're giving up on it, because you're right, it's really strange that they wouldn't even mention it.
Not only did they not mention it, but last year they showed Minecraft with the HoloLens. This year they showed Minecraft with the Oculus.
Right.
So it's just weird. But earlier this year, or whenever it was, we got an announcement of Young Conquer, which is like the meth version of Conquer the Squirrel. Uh-huh. And that was such a horrible, reviled demo that was a HoloLens thing that I think they're backpedaling away from the HoloLens. I really believe... maybe we'll hear about it at some point, but it's just weird not to see it at all at E3 this year. So, whatever. That's all I can say. Whatever.
Division update. No fucks. I'm sorry.
No, don't care.
I played about an hour or two, maybe 3 even, of the Division, because it came with my GPU. I couldn't complain. It was free. And even still, I was just like...
No, I streamed the Division a few times. I played it. I have a glitch compilation. I played it for a good 5-6 hours, and for that time, I didn't have a problem with it. It just got very grindy even before you hit end game content.
It's boring, man.
the Dark Zone was where the fun was at, and I still kind of got bored of that fairly quickly. But it was okay. It's just I hear that 93% of the player base abandoned that game.
Yeah.
That's a pretty
That's
high number of
huge,
people.
huge drop
So,
off. They might, yeah. Tekken.
Few other. Yeah, talk about Tekken. Do you know anything about Tekken?
I know
Are you a Tekken
very
fan?
little. I remember playing the shit out of Tekken 3 when I rented it at Blockbuster and unlocking a cool wood guy. A guy that was just like a fucking ent. Like, he just... and he was a fighter with little, like spheres for hands. I forget his name.
Sphere friend.
Wood sphere.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Splinter Man was his name. Yeah, that's what I remember most. What's the word I'm looking for? Positively. It's not the word, but most fondly. That's the word. That's what I remember most fondly of Tekken was renting Tekken 3 from Blockbuster, unlocking a bunch of stupid, wacky characters, and having a great time. I liked it. But it's not a series I ever got into. I know it's a very juggly, technical fighter. But for the people who are into Tekken, I'm sure that was pretty hype.
Yeah. I actually, it looked good. I'm not a huge Tekken player, but when I played Tekken 2 and 3 as a kid, I enjoyed them very much. So I'm kind of out of the hype loop for Tekken 7. That said, it did look like a good demo, and I'm sure it'll please Tekken fans. And
yeah,
that's really all I can say about that.
Yeah. Otherwise, nothing. I did not expect much out of Microsoft, and I didn't get much out of Microsoft. So, I guess they met my expectations. A plus.
Well, yeah. See, I would also say I have, just to go through the games for a second. As an Xbox One owner, I'm done with zombies. So Dead Rising 4, no interest. I'm sure it'll be cool, but I'm good for anything zombies right now. Unless it's Left 4 Dead 3, I don't think I would be too interested. So, Forza, no interest. And, again, racing, I'm sure it's great for racing fans. I like racing to some extent, but I like more destructible shit. Like BeamNG, I just, got. I'm going to try that out. And I like GTA's racing. Haven't
they announced and released 2 or 3 big open world racing titles over the last year or two? Wasn't The Crew supposed to be that or something?
Yeah, I played The Crew, and it was just
have any of them stuck? I don't know why this is such a big thing that Forza 3 is open world when I think they've been trying open world racers for the last few years. And did any of them stick? Did any of them?
Not that I know of.
So it's cool. I do think it's a really good concept, like an open world racer. I'm glad that they're trying different things to try to breathe some life into the realistic racing sim type thing. But yeah, it just, I don't know, just made me kind of turn my head. I was like, huh, okay. Yeah.
And again, the open world thing with The Crew, I played the beta, and it's there's a few things to do while you're driving from state to state or location to location, and they give you things to do. But I'm wondering how much you can do while you're driving from race to race, and you're just driving and just keep going, and you just keep driving, and you just keep going.
And I don't blink.
And I don't blink. I don't know if you noticed, my name is Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
Yep. And also Halo Wars 2, you can play with a mouse and keyboard. That's, I guess, cool. I don't
Pretty
care.
necessary, probably, but yeah, that's
It's still not I'm not interested in Halo Wars. I never played the first one, but it's still a nice announcement. I'm trying to find the positive here, and we can talk about Final Fantasy 15 later if you want. It looked good, and it just looked like a lot of dodging around a giant hand, which I won't go into Final Fantasy now, but I will just say, whatever Final Fantasy used to be, this is not it. However, whatever this is, looks beautiful, and it looks more and more interesting every time I see it.
I agree.
But I'm not shaking in my boots to play it. It's still something that I'm going to need some convincing about. And
in your booties. Yep.
Chances are I'll just get it when it comes out and let that convince me.
What are you going to get it for?
I probably PC, or depending on release timing, Xbox One. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. How would you rate Microsoft's? How would you grade them?
Out of
Yeah. Okay, up next is Ubisoft or Ubisoft or
Ubisoft, Girlwood,
Ubisoft.
hashtag.
Whoa. So this was the one that opened with the giraffes and the clowns and the Let's Dance stuff, and I'm sure again for Let's Dance fans that might have been exciting, maybe.
I don't care about Let's Dance, so I didn't care about that, but I liked clowns.
Yeah, clowns are where it's at. Like Poplio.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, we need, like, right now we used to be like more in zombies, and then like it was like medieval, then World War II, and then the current Afghanistan shooters. Now we're in sci-fi shooters. Next has got to be circus.
Yeah.
The next big trend in games, like 2-3 years from now, the E3 is going to be like 80% circus themes. It's going to be great.
It's going to be circus cover shooters in space. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So they opened Strunk, I guess, with Ghost Recon, which I remember listening to your stream last night. You said that out of all the games that Ghost Recon was the only one that really excited you. Is that true?
Of Ubisoft, that was the one that brought me the most, aside from South Park. And oh well, you know what? Now that I'm looking at the list, there was a few things here that I'm interested in. But I will say that I was interested in that the most because it had some. What was that?
Nothing.
Are you okay?
We're just laughing at you because you're interested in Tom Clancy game. No, sorry. Continue.
Well, god damn it, man! Tom Clancy's my friend.
Sorry, seriously though, go on. I was listening.
Also, we didn't talk about We Happy Few, which is a very interesting looking game indeed. Have you seen that?
Oh, I actually haven't. I saw the buzz about it, and I'm like, how did I miss that? I missed it, and I didn't watch the thingy. Was
Since
that during?
we're talking about clowns.
Was that during Microsoft?
It was.
How did I miss that? It's not even on this like bullet point list that we're following here.
It's not. But I'll tell you what.
I'll watch the trailer while you tell me about it.
That was my favorite part of probably the Microsoft conference, the We Happy Few game.
What is it exactly? Tell me.
It's coming to Windows as well as Xbone.
Okay, great.
Well, I'll tell you what it's about. The game revolves around a person in a dystopian, retro-futuristic fashion world where everyone's controlled by a personality-altering pill called the Joy Pill. As a result, he decides not to take it, to which he finds the world altered from reality.
Huh. Okay. What's the game? What do you do in it?
It looks a little bit like a BioShock, like what are they called? The juicers?
the theme or the sploicers?
The greasers.
Greasers. Wait. But what's the actual? Is it a stealth game?
It's a first-person shooter where it looks more like BioShock than it does anything else, but I still barely know what the gameplay is going to be like. Just all I can say is first-person shooter.
This reminds me of The Ship, watching the trailer of it. Do you know what The Ship is?
Yeah.
It reminds me of The Ship, like the gameplay-wise, or it looked similar to The Ship. Like really weird-looking people aboard a kind of a strange, bizarro 50s weirdness in costumes and stuff, hunting each other down, I guess, for fun.
Well, in this case, yeah, it does kind of have that aspect to it. But I think there's something deeply horrifying about watching these people with these happy faces, and they're all like convinced that their world is magical and amazing. And then when you stop taking your medication, you find out that it's actually gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, that was a good presentation. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That was.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Not exclusively Xbox, but I am interested in that. And it's being developed on the Unreal Engine 4. So.
Gotcha. But Ghost Recon, you said that was the one out of Ubisoft that you personally were the most interested in, right?
Well, what do you feel about that? You don't like it? You didn't like?
No. I mean, I was just playing a jape on you, my friend. You can like whatever you want to like. I'll like whatever I want to like. Some of us have tastes. Not everyone does. It's okay.
Fuck.
Yeah. But no, seriously though, on a serious note, Ghost Recon. Why are you looking forward to it?
It looks like a cooperative. Okay, first of all, I'll tell you what I didn't like about it. I didn't like, and this was very Ubisoft. They've done this in the past. They continue to do it, and it's annoying, where they script the voice communication between players. And this year's was a little bit less shitty than previous years, but it's still like, hey, we're reading from a script. Yeah, get that tango.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna play this game and fucking tell my friends tango down. Sure. What?
It's gonna be like, oh, bro, what'd you have for dinner, man? Oh, I got some nuggets from McDonald's. It was fun. Like,
yeah, and then it's gonna be like,
oh fuck, I lagged out.
Computer. Caleb, do your homework.
Yeah.
The game looked okay, and I've played a few Tom Clancy games that actually weren't shit, and there was the Rainbow Six game that was pretty good recently.
I don't think any of them are shit, are they? They're just very oversaturated.
Totally oversaturated. But the reason I like this one is because it reminds me of MGS5, just cooperative.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of stealth. There's good action. It looks like there's an open world. So picture the things that we didn't like about Metal Gear Solid 5, where the open world felt too sparse. So that's still going to be a problem in this, but it kind of looked like you get together with some friends, you infiltrate the bases the way you want to, you scope out enemies. And I loved the Metal Gear Solid 5 gameplay so much that seeing this in, obviously it's not going to be as detailed as the Fox engine.
Right.
Which sucks.
Might be.
But it could be good in its own way. But yeah, I mean, I thought the demo was pretty good. It was, when I say I'm most excited, I'm not losing my shit over it, but the similarities to MGS5 got me excited.
Yeah, and you actually brought up a really good point that I'd never really considered before. First off, I want to apologize if I actually made you feel like shit for liking what you like. That was really shitty of me.
No, dude, it's fine.
But you did bring up a good point that I'd never realized before, is that Metal Gear Solid 5, that game was pretty much designed for that kind of co-op experience, and it had co-op it had multiplayer, I guess, PvP, invading other bases, and then they had an AI co-op partner in the field. Why didn't they not let someone real control the co-op partner in the field? It would have made so much sense.
Could have been cool.
It could have been really cool. Why did they not do that? It's like all the things were in place for that. What?
And this looks like, I mean, I never played a Ghost Recon game. I'll just go ahead and say that straight out off the bat. And I don't know how deep these games are supposed to be. In fact, I mean, it looks like a fairly simplified version of what I thought a Ghost Recon game was. But I'm watching it now as we're talking, and I'll say that visually it looks nice and looks like it functions well. And I'm seeing a lot of similarities between this and Metal Gear Solid 5. So, yeah, I think maybe this could be a hit. Is it guaranteed to be a hit? Probably, because that Tom Clancy name, like you said, oversaturation. We were talking before about the Cloverfield effect, right? The marketing. And this is certainly, like, at this point, they're just like throwing this guy's name on fucking everything.
Yep.
But I'm interested, and yeah,
can't wait for Tom Clancy's South Park Fractured Butthole.
I mean, that looked great.
Yeah, but about Tom Clancy, yeah, I don't know. That was probably, we were kind of on opposites here. That was one of my weakest of the Ubisoft conference. Just looks like another, cover shooter. You're right, it's co-op, which is cool. And definitely fairly tactical, like Metal Gear, which is cool. I'm sure if I were to pick it up, I'd have a good time with it, but it was the most underwhelming thing, because I was like, okay, I know I can watch gameplay for about 5 minutes of that, not even 5 minutes, and know 100% what to expect for my entire experience that I would be actually playing it, Like, I feel after a couple of minutes that I've personally seen everything that I would get out of it, so I would just like, okay, I understand what that is, and that's what it's going to be. But, I don't know, maybe I'm not giving it enough credit, but that's how I felt about that. It was kind of one of the weaker Ubisoft things for me. It was just like another military shooter. So
it might be. I'm sure. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if that game was developed in a different way. And then when they saw or they played Metal Gear Solid 5, they were like, "Hey, let's incorporate a little bit of this. Let's show our audience that we've taken some gameplay nods from this game."
Yeah.
And that's really, it's not. The weird thing about it is the only reason I'm excited is because it's of its similarity to another game.
Right.
So I'm maybe being a little bit weird about this particular game, but yeah, I thought it looked decent. Not aside from South Park, it was probably the only thing, because when I think of Ubisoft's conference, I think of Watch Dogs 2.
Yeah.
And then I kind of want to vomit a little bit.
Oh man, see, we're gonna be on opposites about that too. I wasn't blown away by it, but I've got some positive things to say about Watch Dogs too. Which
Did you play Watch Dogs 1?
No, I didn't. So maybe that's
Okay.
where the vomit comes from you. But the thing is, I steer clear of Watch Dogs 1, knowing that it would disappoint me immensely. Me being kind of into that like neo hacker sci-fi thing. But Watch Dogs 2 fixes. Are we talking about Watch Dogs 2? Are we into it now?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So to me, it fixed the problems I had with Watch Dogs 1, which was like the hyper gritty, edgy hacker type. I'm into the hacking. I'm especially into how that can interact gameplay wise, which they showed in the first Watch Dogs 1 gameplay trailer. They're like, here are all the cool things you do. I was like, that's awesome. And then apparently they didn't deliver, so I didn't pick it up. Watch Dogs 2 is more lighthearted. It's more fun. It has those hacking things in the environment intact, despite drones, which going back to Ghost Recon, when they're like, this is a stealth mission, we can't get caught. Oh, why don't you send out a drone to scout ahead? And then the drone flies in everyone's fucking face. I was like, no one notices the drone. But the Watch Dogs 2 did the same thing. I was like, another drone. But it had those interesting ways of hacking with the gameplay, but it was more lighthearted, more fun looking, which I kind of dug it. I was like, all right, this looks more lighthearted and more entertaining.
Right.
The main character wasn't the same, action guy that's in every single other GTA like. He was just a little bit different. He was more, again, lighthearted, had an actual personality to himself.
He wore the name of his hacker organization on his hat.
Yeah.
So no one will know who
No one
he
will
is.
know. No one. There's the spiky Mad Max guy with the cool ass shades, which you gotta admit, those shades were fucking boss. I don't know about you, I kind of want them.
Are you talking about the meme?
The meme shades, the meme eyes.
Where they
I can
express
wink you.
his emotions.
I too can wink. I can wink at you, and have my glasses wink without. I could wink with one eye and then have my glasses wink with the other. I can wink.
You see that when I looked at that, I thought that was just meme bait. That was just like
A little bit.
Here, look at it. And again, like I like the tonal shift is much better for the game. And I said in the chat, if Aiden Turner worked as a hero, he'd be back.
Yeah,
he didn't.
He didn't work.
But what else didn't work in Watch Dogs was the physics and a lot of the pacing and the missions, and Chicago just felt empty. Like, yeah, there was all this stuff you could do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to keep me interested. And when you have a game like GTA where the world feels alive, where they spent all these years developing this style and this world and this gameplay, and then you play Watch Dogs and it's just kind of like not as good as that, you want to go back to GTA. So I feel like maybe the sequel could fix some of the things that were wrong with Watch Dogs 1, but I just don't understand like why we're getting this, and I feel like maybe give us a little bit more time to forget about Watch Dogs, because as of right now, in my mind, it's still a disappointment.
Yeah.
So
Alrighty.
that's me.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that's okay.
I have an open mind to Watch Dogs 2, but I'm not sold on it either. So that's kind of where I am. I'm in the middle ground. I think everything I saw was definitely a step in the right direction. So watching it, I was like, all right, I'm kind of into this. It feels like it might be redeeming. Like this is almost, it feels like a moment in history where people in the future will look back and be like, man, Watch Dogs 1 blew, but man, was Watch Dogs 2 good. Like they have that opportunity, I think. This is their chance to make it into a thing. So.
And I may not want it right now, but if it's good, it's good. And I'd be happy to admit I was wrong for being hard on it. I said hard on. There's the South Park game. What was Steep before we talk about
Steep was that open world. It was the thing they almost ended on. It was the open world snowboard / hang gliding squirrel suit thing. Yeah. Which I was extremely... Well, I'm giving it a chance, and I'll explain why. I was not interested when they opened up because I'm never really into those kind of games. There's not really for me. The more I watched, I kind of got into it, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, kind of going back to the Watch Dogs thing. They were going snowboarding at like a fucking 90-degree straight down angle. You look to your right, your buddy totally beefs it on a cliff, just dies instantly. No fucks are given. You continue snowboarding. Another guy flies by you, hits a bell on a cabin, and screams. And they just shrug it off. They're like, that was cool. I like that it's very tongue-in-cheek in that regard. People are just indiscriminately dying left and right from ridiculously bad decisions while snowboarding, and they just continue about having a grand old time. And you can do it with your buddies and dick around on the mountain, do some jumps. I don't know, kind of sounds fun.
Sure, it didn't. It didn't totally disgust me. But I just felt like they were like, this is going to be a genre-defining, moment. And again, that's another thing too. I noticed the trend at E3 of genre-defining. Like, let's build up how amazing these things are. And then I saw it. It was just a snowboarding game, and it had some cool features. But it was just okay. It didn't do anything for me.
No, you're right. And I guess it being just okay for me is just way more credit than I expected to give it. So maybe that's why I'm kind of talking it up. I was expecting to just be like what you were, where you're just like, nope, next. But I gave it a chance, and I was like, all right, I could see myself enjoying that with a couple of buds and some brewskis and having a grand old time one afternoon playing some Steep. But
sure,
but you're right. It does just kind of look just like, another snowboarding game. I think especially with that genre, with snowboarding, there's a lot of titles that can call themselves quote unquote genre defining. Like with skateboarding, it was Tony Hawk. With snowboarding, I guess it's what's
Snow.
it? Tricky. SSX Tricky. Did I say that right? Shit.
SSX Tricky, and
Cool
then
Borders.
there's Snow.
I guess Cool Borders kind of died quickly, but that's for me was the big snowboarding game when I was a kid, was Cool Borders. Oh my God, Harvey. So
Feed your goddamn cat. How you doing?
So that to me is maybe why Steep, because they want to make another new title that people can mention by name for years. Anyway, South Park.
Yeah. And again, just on a final thing about Steep, giving it a chance. I'm cynical about certain types of games and less about others. And it's funny because here I am shit talking the shoot, and yet I'm interested in Ghost Recon Wildlands. So there's something wrong with me clearly. I acknowledge that there is something weird going on here with my tastes, and again, I can't really fully explain it. I don't mean to be a hypocrite, but if I am, then fucking so be it. But with Steep, I was kind of like next. I was kind of like next, but
never
with Ghost Recon,
apologize.
I was like maybe.
Yeah, never apologize what you're into, man. If you're into shooting folks in the desert, I can't stop you. You should never fucking apologize. I mean that too. I really mean that. Like, no one should ever apologize for the games they're into, no matter how much we shit on it for thousands of listeners.
Right, but it's more the hypocritical nature of not wanting one shoot and wanting another shoot, and that's what makes it.
Well, Metal Gear 5 did it really well. It was flawed, and I'm guessing to you, do you see Ghost Recon? You're like, this could fill that void a little bit. So I do not blame you at all, my friend.
Well, okay, so South Park, there's not really a whole lot to say other than it looked good. Matt and Trey were good on stage. The awkward levels were not high with them.
They're so old. They're so old.
They're getting old, and so were we, but mostly them.
Yeah.
And at the same rate, though, there's a constant here.
Yeah,
when it comes to aging.
Yeah.
But no, the game looked good, and the new combat system looked interesting, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to pick up the story. Some funny moments, and I love that the previous character that you chose, he's the king now, and they're like, dude, we're playing superheroes now.
No more king.
And they don't give a shit anymore.
You're just back to douchebag. It's excellent.
It's perfect.
Now, one thing that I think is notable about it that I want to bring up is from a gameplay standpoint, changing it to grid-based, kind of like a tactics RPG, was a brilliant decision, in my opinion. Just because, to me, taking an RPG-style system and putting it on a field where movement and positioning matters, Carrie pointed this out to me, it makes sense from a theming standpoint because the superheroes, superheroes are very movement-oriented compared to fantasy, which is very RPG, more traditional. But B, it's just going to add this huge layer of depth to it that was just not present in the first one. So I'm excited. I think that change in the battle system was an excellent choice.
Yeah, I mean, we know the writing is probably going to be good because,
Yes.
even the worst seasons of South Park, barring the first like 3 or 4, but even the worst seasons of South Park have a high level of quality, at least, most of the time. So I feel like the previous game was really funny and interesting in terms of its setting, and I like the way it took the seriousness and the absurd and mashed them together. But I think Fractured Butthole is going to do the same thing. So yeah, it looks good. It looks good.
It made me install Stick of Truth because I haven't played it yet, which I feel dirty about. I've watched a couple.
Ooh.
I briefly watched some streams of it, so I knew generally that it was a good game. It looked really good, but I haven't experienced it myself yet. But it made me install it because the new game got me excited enough that I want to do the first game first. So I'm going to be playing that in the very near future.
Cool.
Because I know that you said you enjoyed it a lot, right?
I had just streamed it, within the past year, so it's still kind of fresh in my mind, and I'm upset I missed it when it first came out.
Yep.
It was a very good experience. I enjoyed it.
So the next several games on the list here, I have a feeling we're going to go through real quick. At least if you were anywhere near my level of disinterest in them. For Honor.
For Honor just was. It looked like Rise.
Yes,
Rise?
100%. That's exactly what I said to my chat. We were all watching it together. I said to them, I'm getting Rise vibes out of this, and that game was completely uninteresting. Now
it did nothing for me.
It's Rise, but now with a couple of different time periods. There's Vikings, Samurai, and a Medieval Knight. So nothing, absolutely nothing for me.
Go through the rails. Here you're on an amusement park ride. Hit the button every now and then.
Yeah.
The combat system was like,
it's better than
left
Rise.
or right.
Yeah,
better than Rise, but still maybe not something I'm good for now.
It was kind of like an almost more shallow Skyward Sword battle system, which itself wasn't a very deep battle system, but this was along those lines. You block in certain directions. That's what I got from it. You could block in certain directions and attack in certain directions. So it would still seem more in depth than Rise. I'll give it a little bit more credit, but not much. I was just like,
eh.
We talked about Division during the previous one. No thanks.
Yeah, I'm good.
Just Dance we talked about. Star Trek Bridge Crew, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the game that would make me buy VR. And I've been doing a little research about it because I really am interested in that experience as a huge Star Trek fan. Great to see LeVar Burton on stage. I love LeVar. And it seemed like when you watch the video of him actually playing it, it seemed like he really enjoyed it. I don't know if that's the Czech speaking, but him, Jerry Ryan, and Carl Urban got together. They played it, and the game looks like it could be cool. Maybe a little simplistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic about it, and that would be a game that would be very enticing for me to pick up VR for.
I'm not even cautious. I'm going to say flat out, I think it's very enticing. Any game that has attempted that style of gameplay, like where it's a multiplayer experience, 4 or 5 people, all with very dedicated roles on a ship just trying to make it work through communication. Every one I've ever experienced has been great. It starts off with the cult classic Artemis Bridge Simulator, which is pretty much the same thing, but very impenetrable. Like, it's a really steep learning curve. There's Pulsar, which you might recognize because we played it with some Vine Saucers, GPM, Limes, Rev, Dire, and that was really fun, albeit a little bit buggy, but very fun. There's an iPhone game called Space Crew. Shit, I forget what it's called.
Something like that.
It's good.
And there was the Star Trek Bridge Commander game that was before this. That was actually apparently really good.
I think as a genre, that is one that is fairly untapped, and I feel that almost even like the most amateur shots at that genre are pretty fun. Like it's just a formula that works well and is largely unexplored in a lot of ways. So seeing it on the big stage with like a big crew behind it, for a good pre-established brand, for VR, which, you know, is a big thing. I'm into VR a bit. Not everyone is, but I think VR is a perfect platform for that kind of game. I think that game is going to be excellent, and I really can't wait to play it. So
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. That would be a really nice thing for me too, as a Star Trek fan, to finally have a recent Star Trek game that kicks ass.
That's probably my
So-
second favorite announcement during Ubisoft.
That was damn near the best one for me too. So there is definitely some good. Ubisoft had a pretty decent showing. I mean, there's a lot of awkwardness. I mean, I'm sorry, Aisha Tyler. I like her on Whose Line. I like her in other contexts. I don't. Some of the things she says are just like tough.
It's her
to
writer.
listen
I'm pretty
to.
sure. Like I almost feel bad for her, especially last year's conference. Like I talked about this on stream, but it feels like they had a fuck quota. You know? Do you know what I mean by a fuck quota?
Yeah. They want to be edgy, so they have.
They had a fuck quota. They needed to say at least 20 fucks in the first 10 minutes, at least 30 shits in the first 45, and at least one motherfucker throughout the show.
Right.
You know,
right.
that's what it felt like last
Yeah.
year. And I feel like this year she still swore and they still swore a little bit, but it wasn't as forced, which
No.
I was very welcome. I have a feeling the writer from last year either got fired or was told, you know, tone that shit down,
Sure.
motherfucker.
And there's some self-depreciating jokes, and I mean, like they acknowledged that last year was a little rough, but
Yeah.
that doesn't stop. Like, you're on a stage, I get it. You know, you're delivering performances. There's like a lot of nervous devs. There's like the Minecraft segment in VR in Microsoft. There was a really nervous dev on stage, you know, and that's just always gonna happen. And there's gonna be, I mean, I've heard so many imaginary made-up words this year. It
Yeah.
rivals my own. Like, seriously, the past 3 days, there's been at least 17 additions to the English dictionary, just based on people botching words, and it's been glorious.
Yeah.
But and that's, you know, Ubisoft had definitely had some awkward moments, but generally, I thought they had some good showings. And Eagle Flight VR, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
gonna be a fucking eagle now.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't really care. And
But
then
at least it
Assassin's
wasn't
Creed
just
movie, I don't care.
Marines shooting each other for a flag. At least it was kind of a different theme. I give them credit for that one at least.
Good point. You are 100% correct. And it wasn't just a space shooter either. It was actually eagles, your birds.
It was actually eagles.
Yeah.
And sometimes the simplicity of that lends towards the simplicity in gameplay and game design that you actually need, you know?
Yeah.
There's only one more. I guess there's two other games left. We could hit both of them, I suppose, if you want. But I definitely want to talk about one of them, at least. And that one would be Grow Up. Do you know anything about Grow Home?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm totally out of the loop on these.
Okay. Grow Home is an indie game made by a little splinter studio from Ubisoft. You have to play this game. You have to. This is like, there are very few games that I will tell you as a friend that you have to play. Grow Home, for me, I streamed it last year. I did, and these are big words. This game means a lot to me. Had not felt that sense of wonder and exploration in a video game since Super Mario 64.
Wow.
Playing Grow Home gave me really strong flashbacks to that. Not even flashbacks, but just rekindling that feeling of exploring something, like an almost childlike sense of wonder and exploration. It is just so good. I just love that game. Do you even know what it's about?
I'm looking at it right now. So
Okay.
It looks interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how I missed this, but
You should play it. I think one reason why a lot of people missed it is because Grow Home came out around the same time as Gone Home, which for the traditional gamer, a lot of people really lamented, you know, the existence of that game. Not to open that can of worms, but point is, Grow Home, you should play it. I'll fucking gift it to you if that's what it takes to get you to play it. I'll put it that way.
Consider this.
You don't even have to stream it. I think it'd make a good stream. It's really funny because there's derpy physics all over the place. I could spend a whole podcast talking about that game.
Okay.
I really mean it. So I'm gonna cut it there. Point is, Grow Up is exciting for me because they didn't do much to overhaul the graphics. Still the same engine, the same derpy ass physics, the same concept. All they did was build. They just expanded the world, and I was like, Yep, thumbs up. That's all I needed. I'm excited for Grow Up because it's a sequel to Grow Home, which I feel is one of the best games I've played in probably a decade or so. So
Okay, good to know. Good thoughts.
yeah,
And then through Trials, Blood Dragon, whatever.
yeah, not crazy about it. At least it has some personality, but apparently it came out that same day. Apparently, it did not get very good reviews. Apparently, for fans of Trials, it failed because it was not a true Trials game. Very little of it was like Trials. And then for fans of Blood Dragon, it wasn't Blood Dragon-y enough. It was very ham-fisted. Lots of, fists and ham. So,
Yeah, no, I'm good. Hack, fraud, schlock, clown. No, I'm good.
Ubisoft, grade.
I don't know. I'd give him like a triple deluxe out of a quadruple deluxe, maybe.
I think it was the best Ubisoft show in years. Not to say it was the best show this year out of the other ones.
No.
But as far as Ubisoft goes, I've come to expect derp, and it was only semi-derp.
Pretty solid. I at least, let's just say I had at least 3 or 4 games that piqued my interest, and 2 of those I was like, oh, like Star Trek in particular in South Park. So it was pretty good.
Yep, South Park.
The conference itself, they need to rework how they do these conferences. I think every major, like there's got to be a better format to reduce awkward, but that's just my opinion. Anyway.
South Park, Grow Up, Star Trek, Fractured Butthole. I guess that's also South Park.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good variety, which I think I appreciated the most too. Sony and Ubisoft both had excellent variety in their shows, whereas Bethesda was very shooty, EA was very sporty, Nintendo was very Zelda-y. To say the least. I'm gonna go kick a cat out of this room right now, while you start talking about Sony.
I'm gonna introduce the Sony conference. So. I again would like to say that I have no stake in the Sony conference, and I watched it not live, but I watched it later. And I don't have a PS4, so I can't play the Sony games. But there's a lot of games here that were interesting to me, and I feel like a few common themes of the Sony conference were, so you had the orchestra, you had that, and the dude kept walking out to like hosts the planets, and probably Wagner. I don't know.
Yes.
Who it was? It Wagner?
No. Holst. It was Holst.
Oh, it was
That's
Holst.
why I said.
But also, yeah. I mean, so there was a lot of cool stuff like that. For me, Sony was solid. But again, since I have no interest in playing a lot of these games, nor do I have a PS4, it doesn't appeal to me as much as some other things might. And I will say that I was also more interested in this than I was Microsoft, and I have a Microsoft Xbox One. I don't have a PlayStation, so Sony did a good job this year, and I'm really interested in a lot of what they have to offer.
When you said that they need to rethink the format of what they do, Sony, I think, had the best format out of all the different conferences. They just did trailer after trailer after trailer, minimized the talking, and I'll admit sometimes you need to talk about something, and they did.
You need to talk about a few things, but they weren't bragging about sales as much,
especially
as
like hardware
10 years ago.
Yeah,
because that was a huge thing like 10 years ago at E3. It would be like, here's hardware, here's sales. By the way, our shareholders feel really good about these numbers, so we're going to tell you. Meanwhile, you know what? Keep that to the shareholder meetings. We can talk about games. Show the trailers.
Sony
did that.
Yeah, I loved their format. I loved the orchestra. That was just a beautiful touch and probably cost them ass loads of money, but worth it for the spectacle, and it was just really well done. That they played wonderfully as expected. So
it started with God of War, the music, and then it launched into the God of War demo, which they showed was in real time. In fact. It was real time. So here's the thing about it. Did nothing for me.
Okay.
On rails.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say it did a couple things for me, but it also didn't do a lot for me. But what were you gonna say? I apologize.
No, it's okay, man. It was I don't want to see. You may be a fan of the series. I've never played a God of War game.
I'm not a fan, but go on.
I know that they're good games, and I know I would love God of War because it's similar to other games that I enjoy. But watching this trailer, it felt like, okay, well, we're going to go through this narrow forest where you have you have a little space to your right, little space to your left. You're gonna follow the story beacon, aka your child, and then you're gonna ram an axe. You're gonna ram an axe into the heart of a demon. Now the animations were beautiful.
Yeah.
The sounds were beautiful. The game is gorgeous. And then you fight a giant monster that looked. You could have told me this was another unknown game that was not God of War, and I would have been like, okay, it's a guy versus monsters.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more to it than that, and I apologize if I sound narrow-minded. I do not have God of War. The demo just looked like a corridor hack and slash where you hacked 3 or 4 things and then let your son hunt a rabbit or a deer. So that's why it didn't do anything for me. It's not going to win me over to the series, even if I had a PS4. I probably want to play the first few games first and then see what this is about.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's definitely a reboot. First off, it doesn't have a number in the title. Whenever they rename it after its base title, that means it's a reboot. So first off, it's a reboot. Okay. Just like Tomb Raider.
I didn't know that.
Or yeah. Whenever they reboot anything, they just drop the number. They name it what it came from. They should have called Legend of Zelda just Legend of Zelda because clearly it's a reboot. They fucked up. But I think it's kind of a welcome reboot in some ways. I'm glad that they're kind of switching up the God of War formula. That being said, it looks like they're rebooting it into even more generic, kind of current gen action open worldy type games. One thing that I thought was direly missing from the trailer, and I'm sure that that's just because it's the trailer and that this will be rectified in the final game, but it's missing the really over the top presence of mythological creatures, like really in your face mythological creatures from the first few games, like having like
which
fighting
are cool as fuck.
Yeah, like the Hydra creature and just the different gods. And I'm sure they have to make an appearance, otherwise it won't be God of War. But it just kind of felt like another like Skyrim, like okay, there's dragons and trolls and other just typical fantasy creatures rather than mythological creatures. You know what I mean? So that was very underwhelming. I guess Babby Kratos was okay. I thought it was funny that he shot his dad.
Yeah, it was a funny it was well directed. It was a good script. I mean, I'm sure the story is going to be fun and interesting.
It just reeks of typical AAA handholdy open world nonsense. I don't even know if it's open world or linear. I can't tell. Like it kind of wanted to give the illusion of open world, but not. And I don't know. I was just kind of I think it picked up when it got more fast paced at the end with Kratos doing crazy ass leaps and really quick camera snaps and things. I was like, okay, that's more like the God of War I remember.
Right, but I'm wondering, it looked like the animations were really, really specific to those things. So I'm wondering, how does the gameplay fit into that? Do you just move left and right and press a button? Right. Or is that going to be like the whole game have the F physics, or is that like a specifically canned animation segment where you have, you know what I mean? It's hard to tell, and it reminded me of that For Honor game that we were talking about from Ubisoft.
But the thing is, that's also a big part of God of War, amongst all the hack and slash that's in it. The older God of Wars, they would go and usually you'd have a boss battle, which was your typical boss battle. And then the final blow is always this cinematic sequence with some QTEs, and as long as you hit the QTEs right, then Kratos would do his shit and kill whatever thing he's killing, because that's what he does. Right. That's kind of what I feel that was a nod to. He took on the troll, he fought it for a while, and then he had to deliver the coup de grace, which is always a cinematic thing. So in that regard, that was actually very much like God of War. Okay. But I understand. But I do agree with you that that doesn't mean it's good just because it's a deliberate throwback. Still, I was just like, okay, yep, here comes the scene where he does the thing.
It was predictable. I mean, people were clapping and jeering and not jeering, cheering. People loved it. I get it. It was a well-presented E3 demo, and well-presented E3 demos are getting kind of old. I want to see more. It looks like stuff we've played 1,000 times. Now, here's the thing. God of War fans, I'm sure you guys have a great reason to love your series. I haven't played it, and I want you to know this could have been called anything. It could have been called Man of Fuck, and I could have played Man of Fuck or looked at Man of Fuck and saw this exact same demo, and I would have been like, all right, next.
Deity of Strife. Yep.
Yeah. Deity of Strife.
Yep.
It's fine. I mean, it could have been worse, and it looked great, gorgeous, and it was very cinematic indeed. But didn't do a whole lot for me.
And it would have been better if Kratos had been 100% naked, and that the babby Kratos was a literal fetus that he had birthed.
Oh man,
that would have been better.
So let's talk about Death Stranding, Kojima's new project,
Yes.
starring Norman Reedus and Norman Fetus.
Yep.
It's a joke I've made a number of times. I
Yeah,
apologize, but
that's original. I think. Yeah, I don't think I heard that one.
I think it's original. But then someone in my chat told me I stole it from someone, so I don't. At this point, I don't know.
That was the meme. In fact, someone expertly recreated the Death Stranding like logo with the weird drippy font, except instead of saying Death Stranding, it said Norman Reedus and his funky fetus, and it was excellent. It definitely turned into a meme very fast. The Norman Reedus and his Norman fetus thing. It was like 10,000 retweets.
Do you have an interpretation of what you looked at when you watched it?
You mean from from what kind of standpoint?
Like the standpoint of like what it meant, maybe
No.
to Kojima?
No, none. And I think anyone analyzing it to be like, oh, well, you see, the baby is Metal Gear, and
Yes.
the umbilical cord is his tie to that, and he's crying because he's separated from his Metal Gear now.
That's what everyone's saying. I was joking about it last night. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I could see where they might come from, but I don't think that was his intention. I think it was just this weird Kojima fuckery that he does. And did you like it? You know,
Highly memorable. Whatever the fuck it was, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, no,
It was
I
just
think
so weird.
This is one of the most polarizing trailers in my mind for me, because part of me loved it because I really like Hideo Kojima. I like almost everything he's done, even outside of Metal Gear, and it's nice, you know, that pretty much every gamer is rooting for him in that whole debacle. Everyone's like, yeah, man, Kojima, he needs his thing, man. He's one of the best, man. So it's kind of cool seeing him come in stage in fucking style as he always does. The crowd going nuts. Him showing this goofy fucking trailer. I liked that. And the game, if nothing else, it intrigued the hell out of me just to know what it is. So as a teaser, it did its job. The other side of me was like, what is this? Like, I want to know what it is. You know, like, how does it play? What do you? I'm very much a gameplay person. I'm a mechanics person. I'm not into kind of more narrative experiences, but especially for Kojima games, it's largely a narrative thing and then also largely a gameplay thing. He does both very well, even if they don't marry together all the time. So seeing this, it got me hyped. It was kind of like the first Phantom Pain trailer. It told us very little about the actual game. So we have no idea where it could go from here. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be going in an interesting direction. I like the style. Watching it again while we're talking, I like the visual style of it quite a bit. And it was certainly weird and memorable. And I will probably be haunted by that baby and Norman Reedus for the rest of my life. So thanks for that. You know, but yeah, it could be. We don't know. We just don't know. It's just Kojima trying to do something interesting and memorable, and he succeeded, and I'm always rooting for him too, especially after seeing the Metal Gear Solid 3 trailer remake with all those nice graphics, and then seeing it on the pachinko machine,
which I thought was a joke. I thought it was, do you know what P4R gaming is? It's like,
I thought it was that.
It was that. It's the Onion of video games for the listeners who don't know. I thought they were joking. I thought they were like, yep, they're using the Fox engine to remake Metal Gear Solid 3 on a pachinko machine. Haha, because we've been joking about this for months since he left. But it's real. It is real.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like they deliberately took his most heralded baby, his most heralded fetus, and turned it specifically into a pachinko machine and then threw it out in the public just to, spite him. But that's all tinfoil hat. I mean, I'm sure they operate purely on money. There's no personality there. But
and the same. I mean, in terms of tinfoil, I think that the interpretation of, Norman Reedus being Kojima and the baby being his Metal Gear series, like there's a handcuff in the beginning. Like you could really easily make an argument that he was going for that kind of interpretation or whatever.
But then what are
And I
the
mean,
whales on the beach that also had umbilical cords?
cash cows, like the Kojima fat cats that have all the Konami fat cats that have all the money that maybe created the oil, the toxic oil that poisoned Konami and thus Kojima's baby.
Now,
Who the
it's
fuck
also
knows?
interesting
Who the fuck knows?
the title Stranding, I think is a reference to whale stranding or what's the word for it? Beach stranding?
Yes.
Is that what it's called? Where whales will just somehow get stuck on the beach, like they just, went too close to the shore too fast, they got washed up by a wave, and they're just too heavy to make it off. And then in the trailer, you see all the whale corpses all along the shore. So clearly, that's what Stranding is in a reference to.
Right.
The death side, man, who knows? And and a bigger thing, and I don't know if you knew this, but Norman Reedus was in the Silent Hills teaser.
Yes.
From the end of PT. So there's speculation that they're related somehow. I don't think they are. I think that, they were just that Reedus and Kojima were just buddies, so they decided to keep working together. But
I think that's what that is too. Yeah, Del Toro was supposed to be involved as well.
Yes.
When it came to, the previous Silent Hill.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see elements of PT in this new game, and it could be really interesting. Who knows?
But that's what we have. Sorry, go on. I'm terrible at interrupting people.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Whatever it is, I'm interested. That's all.
Yeah. And besides, we have plenty of new PT in the form of Resident Evil 7 BioShock teaser.
Yes, let's
BioShock,
talk about
sorry,
that.
Biohazard.
Biohazard.
I think a lot of people are into it, but I'm gonna flat out say I wasn't. Not into it.
I like the one dude that screamed when a person appeared. There's
Yeah.
a dude in the crowd who was like, ah! and everyone laughed at him. That was my favorite part. Now, it looked kind of good. It's going to be VR. That's a thing. Like, it looks like a lot of these big games at Sony. One thing that kind of threw me off a little bit was like, here's a big franchise. By the way, here's an unrelated VR demo. Enjoy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Resident Evil looks like a return to the series' roots a little bit. But it looks also completely fucking different, and I have no idea what to expect anymore. But, whatever.
I think that, first off, I'm going to call that the VR version is going to suck balls. Apparently, it's pretty much just from a visual standpoint adapted into the headset so you can look around, but you just control with a controller. Very limited, narrow point of view, or the view field, I guess. Which means you don't have a frame of reference for your head and the movements going on. It is what's the word I was looking for? Narrow. Oh, it's very dark, very kind of indistinguishable a lot of times, which does not translate well to VR. And a lot of the movements are not going to correspond with your body because you're not actually moving for any of it. It's, like I said, all controller based.
Which can give you a headache too.
Yeah, it gives you kind of headache, and for a lot of people, nausea. Not everyone. It's just fine for a lot of people, but for a lot of people, it's not. Yeah, and it's I think the VR version is gonna kind of be a mess. Personally, it feels like they just kind of threw it in the headset and said, "Yep, it's VR from top to bottom." So
that makes me wonder, what the hell is the game then?
Well, that's what I was about to get to. Is that I don't know if this is representative of the game. Like, maybe the actual Resident Evil 7 is just going to be a bit more traditional Resident Evil, and this was just a teaser from a narrative standpoint. Or if they actually are changing up the formula, which I would almost welcome more, because I think the game could use a change up. I think they established a great baseline with Resident Evil 4, and then they've been straying from that progressively ever since. So for them to try something different, I'm fine, and I'm actually happy about that. That being said, the form it's currently in looks boring, uninspired. It looks like they were trying to do PT and failed and completely missed the point of what made PT so good, because PT was excellent.
All right. Bold claims. I definitely was not as interested as other people were. I think for most people it was like after Resident Evil 6, the Hollywood action schlock, of shoot fest that was Resident Evil 6. it was like, okay, finally we're getting back to something a little different, the roots in some ways. So that is exciting. But what I saw was just looking around at grimy, grungy things. And
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that that's going to do anything for me. And I need to see more.
I mean, I guess it's kind of makes sense considering that Silent Hill is like a more psychological Resident Evil clone, you know, at least in its beginning stages. And Resident Evil's more quote unquote down to earth, is more just a zombie shooter type thing. So having it be less psychological, where you're just in a really shitty house, you know, with with spooky things happening and a guy, you know, walking around and who knows what that's lingering around the corner. In a way that is kind of true to the Resident Evil nature. It's not trying to be overly psychological. It's just trying to be spoopy.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. It's just,
yeah, but it looked boring to me. You walk around, you collect a few items, not much thought behind it, because like that inherently doesn't have a lot of thought. So it's up to like a really clever game designer to kind of like either make it so that the train of thought leads to an interesting place, or that you can actually solve some puzzles or do some interesting things.
Sure.
Which PDT actually did in some ways, and it wasn't crazy from a gameplay perspective, but still better than, oh, look, I found a hatchet, I found a fuse, I found a finger in a microwave. Okay.
Well, I mean, you do see what they did with Resident Evil 6, right? Like, the level of schlock
Oh my gosh.
that was brought to us in the Resident Evils. Those are the masterminds that are bringing us new Resident Evil 7. So I'm worried, but I also know that there's potential, because Resident Evil 4 was so good. There could be some time between now and when we see the game again that will make it even better. So I'm cautious, yes, optimistic maybe, but I think it's not as instantly amazing as some people are making it out to be. However, I'm just happy it's not gun shoot.
Yeah.
You know, Gears of War, Resident Evil.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm just happy that they are trying something different. Whether or not it ends up just, like I said, being a narrative teaser or actually representative of what they're going to go for in the final game. I'm just glad they're at least thinking in a different direction for once. So that's kind of nice, because they've been going downhill ever since 4. Like 5 was good in a lot of its own ways, but I think it was also bad in a lot of its own ways. Whereas 6 was just almost completely bad in its own ways. Very little good, other than maybe Leon's. Leon's part was all right, but Chris's was just a total shit fest. The Minnie Wesker and Minnie Wesker lady is gal pal, and that I was just like it just wasn't good. It was boring.
It was rough.
Very repetitive, very frustrating to play. Nonsensical plot, which Resident Evil's never had a crazy interesting plot anyway, but
but that one was especially tough to digest. Well, anyway, let's keep going, because we got a lot more to cover with Sony. And the crazy thing is, we're not even halfway there. So let's do some ones really quick. The Days Gone. Let's talk about that for a second.
Not interested.
It was biker zombie game on rails. You know, action set pieces, zombies bursting through doors. It felt like I was watching a movie, which is not what I want from video games, so that needs to not happen. I didn't have any interest in that whatsoever.
The first trailer, when it kind of, a lot of people were thinking it was a Last of Us sequel, or even in the same universe, I was more interested, like just slightly, and it was near the beginning of the show, so I was like, okay, this seems like a good thing to start with. To end the show with gameplay from that, the most generic shooting stuff, and just turns out it's just another typical zombie rusher game or zombie shooter game. I lost all my hype for that, and not only was it a very underwhelming way to end what was a great conference, but it turned out that any kind of hope I had for that game was gone, because I was like, oh, okay, it's just one of these games.
Right. Yeah. You know? It's Walking Dead in game form.
Yeah. So I was like, nope,
more zombies.
I'm done. Not interested. So.
Same. Call of Duty, we could touch on very good. I don't think we even need to talk too much about it. People have already made up their minds about Call of Duty. And if you love Call of Duty, whatever we say isn't going to change your mind. Most people that I think we stream to are not overly interested in this series anymore. So I'll just say that whatever it was that we watched, Call of Duty in space, It got to ridiculous
It
levels.
did.
It was like Moonraker. It was like fucking
Yeah.
Moonraker, but
Yeah.
not as campy fun. It was just shoot people in space, and it again is a series that I have little interest in. And I have the previous game because they sent it to me.
Yeah.
And I played it as VDub. I mean, VDub played it, and he played it for a total of about 3 or 4 hours. Even attempted one mission in campaign and then moved on.
Yeah.
So let's just say Call of Duty in space, I am not interested in. How do you feel?
Me neither. Even though despite my statement earlier of saying take a franchise and make it sci-fi, and I'm suddenly more interested in it. I guess it is a little bit true for this, but only marginally, like not much at all, because the game, the trailer they showed me just totally turned me off from it. I'm like, cool, it's in space, all right, so I'm gonna like it more than your standard Call of Duty because this is my jam. But it just looked like a clusterfuck. There should have been no fucking sound, because goddamn, why could he hear so much? He's in space, and I understand they explained it. They said there was artificial audio going through his headset, and I say that's complete bullshit. That I'm not buying it. So nope, I'm not interested. Too clusterfucky. It looks like a pile of ding dongs. So.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm not really feeling it at all, and I just don't understand what's happening in life anymore when I watch trailers like that.
Yeah,
it's just like, and you can grapple onto dudes and kick them in the face and have them explode in the vacuum of space. That's fine. It almost rhymed, but you know that's fine. And
how you doing? Hey, it's me, Tinky Winky. I want to let you know something. This game looked like tubby custard, okay? You don't want to know what that is.
Tubby custard? What's tubby custard, Tinky?
No, you don't want to know. You got to have the vacuum clean it up, suck it out of you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. I think I know what tubby custard is. I'm not gonna go further on it. Horizon Zero Dawn. Yes or no?
What an edgy name.
I know. It's kind of a crappy name if you ask me. They could have just called it Horizon, and I would have liked that name a little bit more. But how do you feel about the game?
The style was interesting because you have like mechanical animals again, and it was like almost reminded me of Zelda, which we'll get to because it's open, and it's like you get to ride the things and you get to shoot them with bows. I watched the trailer. I gotta say, I would not buy a PS4 for it. If it turned out to be really good, I might get it if I had a PS4. It looked more interesting than a lot of the closed linear games, so I'll give it that. The demo was more enticing than, say, a Call of Duty or a For Honor, but it still kind of just had this thing where I felt like it just like we're really, what are we doing? Like,
it interested me enough to, I think I'm going to rent it at least. I'm going to GameFly it or something. I get a new email from GameFly telling me I can restart for $1 anytime I want. And that's the kind of game that would get me to sign up for that so I could try it out again, because I think it interested me enough. I like the mechanical animals. Again, like I said, it always comes back to it. It's the sci-fi theme. I'll always be into it just because it's kind of my disposition. But
like nomads with mechanical animals.
Yeah, it's like Far Cry Primal meets sci-fi, which is strange.
And it didn't look bad at all. It looked like they spent a lot of time working on it, and there's like choices.
I'll give it a shot, I think. I'm not blown away by it. It looks for every interesting and novel thing about it, there's a completely uninteresting generic thing about it.
Yes. And that's what's weird about it. It's a very polarizing looking game. Like part of me wants to like it and I like what I see, but then another part of me just rejects it. And it's hard to explain why, but it's just what it is.
I think it's a game that's going to be hard to judge until you play it, whereas other games we can judge pretty quickly that whether or not we're going to like it.
Sure.
Detroit. Do you have any thoughts on Detroit?
Reminded me of Blade Runner a little bit, and also a mix of that movie AI that Spielberg took from Kubrick.
No, I mean the actual city of Detroit. Do you have any thoughts?
I think someone needs to fucking fix that shit, and I'll tell you what. I propose that really good hot dogs, might be able to save Detroit.
I think that there was a typo in the title. Instead of Detroit Become Human, it was Detroit Become Human, like comma, instead of a colon. Okay.
I thought maybe there's a typo. It's not Detroit, but Detroit, like Android.
Yeah, Detroit become human. When the mayor of Detroit becomes a cyborg and half of its denizens, do body hacks, and things.
Mhm.
I read some crappy article about body hackers, and they call themselves like buzzers or something stupid like that. But anyway, when half of Detroit is made of buzzers, I hope they rename the city Detroit.
Detroit. Yeah.
But here's what I'll be
Yeah.
brief about it. I'm excited for this because even though their games always their grasp shit, what's the fucking analogy? I feel so dumb right now. Its grasp goes out of its reach.
Overreaches. It's
Overreaches.
reach, something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, I feel stupid. It's a long day.
It overextends past its reach, I guess. I don't know.
I gotta
either.
I'm gonna Google this because that's how embarrassed I am right now. Its grasp exceeds its reach exceeds its grasp.
Its reach.
Grasp
Okay.
exceeds its reach. Its
Reach exceeds its grasp.
Yes.
Let's ask Tinky Winky.
Tinky
I
Winky.
thought.
No, I'm done.
It's been such a long day, but anyway, point is that's what Quantic Dreams always does. It did it with Fahrenheit. It had a really ambitious, cool game that just beefs it in the second half. Heavy Rain, very interesting concept, pretty fun to play. Still enjoyed it overall, even though it kind of beefed it in the second half. Detroit Become Human, same idea. I think it's a very interesting idea, and it looks like it has the best parts of Heavy Rain, which were the detective sequences, and it's going to focus on that. Plus the Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick, Ian style world. I'm always going to have a soft spot for that. So, but it's probably going to beef it in the second half because that's their track record. But regardless of that, I'm excited for it. I think I'm going to enjoy it no matter how bad it gets in its second half, because it's like just the right kind of theme for me. It's I've always been interested in their gameplay.
Right.
It's always a good time with a Quantic Dream game, even if they get mega derpy by the end.
Sure, yeah, and from someone who's totally not even played one of their games, just watching that and the setting and the choices that you have, I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I heard the name and I went, oh.
Yeah. You would enjoy Fahrenheit because it gets into the kind of more tinfoil hat, like deep web type conspiracies and mixed with weird Mayan apocalyptic mythology.
I love me some apocalypse.
Yeah, I think you would. I think you'd actually have a lot of appreciation for Fahrenheit, but, or I guess it's called shit. What was it called? Fahrenheit game. Oh, Indigo Prophecy is what it was called, because it talks about like the Indigo Child and things like that, which I know you've heard about.
I've heard about it a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you'd enjoy that, even if it gets so derpy by the end, like mega derp. So I'm looking forward to that. Otherwise, I think that wraps up Sony for me.
There's quite a few more things, sadly.
What?
There's a lot.
Oh
of
no,
Sony
there's
stuff.
a couple others. Yeah, let's keep going. So, Last Guardian, got a
I have
release date.
no opinion. Okay, here's the thing. I don't have a vested stake. I love Shadow of the Colossus. I've never played Ico. The game looks like what I was expecting it to look like based on the trailer I saw last year. That said, again, I don't have a PS4, so my comments on this game were, it looks cool. I wouldn't buy a system for it, but if I had the system and it was released to critical acclaim, as it probably will be, I would pick it up. That's my thoughts.
I liked Eco a lot. I think the kid and the environment keeps looking better, while the stupid Griffin thing keeps looking dumber. I think the Griffin is not aging gracefully with the technology and the hardware. I don't know why. He was cute when he first showed up, kinda. And then he got kind of grungy with the reboot or the re-trailer a year or two back. And then with the release date trailer, he's come full circle. He just looks like a trash baby Griffin.
Trash baby.
Yeah, a total trash baby Griffin. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
But I'm totally gonna play it if anything, for its mythical status plus being a fan of Eco and Shadow. So I'm gonna play it. I'm not crazy optimistic like some people are. Whenever something's been delayed and gone through, like, changed hands so many times over that period of time, I can't be optimistic. I just can't. And I'm fine with that, because if it ends up being really good, then it's just a huge pleasant surprise. If not, I'm not let down. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another thing. Like I've noticed a few games at E3, in particular this one and the one we're probably gonna talk about after this, Final Fantasy. It's just I've been hearing about these games at E3 forever, and they are just still here, and they're still at E3, and it makes me less hype. I hate to use it like that, but it's true. When Last Guardian has been forever in development, or it seems like it, and then Final Fantasy 15 has gone through a number of different changes, and I keep seeing videos and footage, and it's like, well, I'm ready now for this game to come out so it could stop being at E3 more than anything.
yeah.
I know it's a very cynical approach to it, but then you think about something like Duke Nukem Forever, and it's like, well, you got to be careful with development hell.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sucks.
Yeah. I was thinking, since we are low on time, do you want to save Zelda for the next podcast? Because let's face it, we're probably going to talk about Zelda more than any other game, like any of these combined. We could talk for a half hour to an hour about Zelda, I bet, if we really wanted to. Do you want to save that for the live cast, and we'll just wrap up Sony tonight?
I do know that a lot of people wanted me to share my thoughts on Zelda.
Okay,
like
no problem.
immediately.
No, we can go long tonight if you want. I just wanted to check.
It's up to you. Do you feel like you can?
Yeah, we could do it tonight. Let's wrap up Sony though. So we have Final Fantasy 15.
The demo in VR. How'd you feel about that? Play as Prompto.
Oh, it looks terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Okay. And that's coming from someone who's a VR fan. So
yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah, I'm self-prescribed into VR. I own a Vive. Someday when the touch controllers come out, I might get an Oculus. I'll probably get a PlayStation VR, if only for the exclusives on that end. Here's what Play as Prompto looked like, and this is largely what I heard it was, too, so it kind of confirmed my suspicions. Apparently, you watch a cutscene of the party fighting a behemoth from a vantage point. Like, you are on the vantage point, you're Prompto, what a name.
And like Pepto, which is Mel Brooks' name in one of his movies. High Anxiety, I believe.
Yeah. You watch a cutscene of them fighting a behemoth, and while you watch it, you have a gun in your hand that you can use to shoot that behemoth, but it does not affect the cutscene. The behemoth just keeps fighting them. You can warp to a different spot and continue to shoot behemoth while you watch that cutscene. You're essentially pointing a gun at a movie that's gonna play out the same way no matter what you do, and you can shoot it. It's like I could take my dart gun, put on Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, and shoot the screen and get the same exact experience. That's what Final Fantasy 15, the VR experience, Play as Prompto, feels like to me.
And why are they doing this? To sell Sony VR?
I don't know. Maybe Sony gave them a lot of money. They probably did.
Yeah, obviously, but I'm just wondering, like, why are so many of these games doing this now? It's like a little bit much.
Does it make you sad at all that they've already milked the fuck out of 15 before it's even out? Like, that's a new precedent, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, Square has never been beyond. I mean, they did Coca-Cola with Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah.
They'll take a fat check if they have to.
They'll take a couple of fat things if they. Sorry,
yeah, seriously.
With 13, they announced a couple different games, and it was like, okay, it's kind of a trilogy of sorts, of which 15 was one of those games. For those who don't remember, it was 13 Versus, or Versus 13. Mm-hmm. This was part of that, but now at this point, they've come out with I think at least 2 spin-off games, an anime. An animated movie that's not an anime, like a 3D CGI movie, the Prompto VR. What else have they come out with? There's got to be more. I didn't just name them all.
They're banking on this being a huge hit.
They are, but point is they're milking it before it's even out, which I think the game itself, to talk a little bit about 15, which we might have talked about in the past, I think it looks fun. Like you said earlier today, it's not totally Final Fantasy, but in a lot of ways, it kind of brings me back to 7. Like with the car, to me, feels like a throwback to the buggy from 7. Sure. And I can dig it. I can get into what it's about. I like the summons, that they're these huge monstrosities again, and not just like what they were in 12 and 13, like an afterthought. I think the plot could be interesting, but it's too early to tell. I like the idea of a comfy ass road trip across the country with your bros. I'm into most of this. It's not the typical cast of just your couple of healer, like one warrior lady, one healer lady, a kind of a mage that is different than everyone else, does not like kind of an unconventional one. In 13, him being the black guy, and 9 being the black mage. You know what I mean? Like just being the strange person.
Right.
The odd one out is always the mage. In 15, there's more consistency to that. The party is just kind of what it is. It doesn't have to fill too many holes. It can just be made up of what it could be, of what it is, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it makes a little sense. Sure.
Yeah. Someone will understand. At least two listeners will understand what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I'm into it, but the milking I'm not into too much. I'm kind of just overwhelmed by it more than anything.
Yep. Yeah. It's just like I said, I'm hearing about it so much, and there's also a lot of Sony people that will come out, or Square people that will come out and attack me because I may not like an aspect of it, which makes me even more upset in a way because, the thing about it is the game looks good, and I'm not going to deny that the game looks good, but I'm still not 100% sure about it. But but there's a rampant it's just so now everywhere. It was at 2 conferences at this E3, and I just have to watch a lot of the same stuff, the car and the giant monsters, and I didn't particularly think the Xbox demo of it was interesting. It was just a giant hand that the dude was dodging and attacking.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I saw Prompto VR. I was like, yep. And so, if that's the thing about it, I'm not totally feeling these presentations and the oversaturation and the rampant defense of it. Yeah. Because I think that we need to see the game come out first and see how good it is. But even Square is making it into the second coming of Christ before it's even out.
Yeah, imagine how embarrassing it will be if the game turns out to be a pile of ding-dongs.
It might, I
don't think it will.
They're putting too much money in.
But let's just say it did end up being bad. Yeah. I don't think it will, but let's say it did. Let's say it flopped. It gets bad reviews. People are just just totally, just not into it at all. How embarrassing would it be to have all those?
Square Enix is already in slightly dire straits, right?
Yeah.
So this
could be their actual Final Fantasy. Yeah,
it could be. If this isn't goddamn amazing.
Yep.
We'll see. It's cool. It looks good. I will probably end up playing it in one form or another. So let's hope it's good.
Anything else in Sony?
Crash Bandicoot. We'd like to announce a new Crash Bandicoot remake. Okay.
And he's in Skylanders.
Okay. Everyone was like, "We're gonna get a new Crash this year," and then they announced, and they start applauding. The audience is going crazy. Remaster, and then the audience goes a little bit more tepid.
They died. They all died.
Yeah, and I have no stake. I have nothing to say about Lego Star Wars 7 because Lego games are a little too simplistic for me. I
kind of enjoyed them.
I enjoyed them
when they first came out. Yeah,
and Spider-Man, I don't have a lot of interest in either.
I'm interested in Spider-Man, but it's just really hard to judge until you actually get the game because there's all these different arguments about whether or not he should be able to sling from the sky or whether he has to have a building or how the action will play. What about the story? There are too many variables. We know what Spider-Man is. It's just a matter of getting the actual game in our hands and seeing how it actually plays. He's got a cool white suit, or a lot of white in the new suit, which I didn't care for. Other people seem to really dig it, but I mean, whatever. Point is, there isn't much to say about it, I think, until it comes out.
Sure, yeah, I don't know. I never played the Spider-Man games. I don't really have a lot to say. But the presentation, the trailer was action-packed and exciting. And a lot of splode.
Yep. It had the eyes. They had to have the eyes. I wouldn't be surprised if it's been in development for years, and then they saw Civil War and was like, oh, we got to put the eyes in. That's everyone's favorite. Which the eyes are really cool, so I'm glad they put them in, but
Sure. Yeah, it looked good. Looked like a good demo. New York City looks great, so I mean, yeah, maybe it'll be great.
Yeah. Anything else with Sony?
Sony.
I think
That is
so.
finally
Other
done.
there's all the PlayStation VR stuff, I guess, which out of all those, I'm really interested to see what they do with Batman. So, because who knows on that? I mean, if it's the more detective-y side of Batman, where you're like picking up things at a crime scene and trying to put the pieces together, that could be really cool, because that's kind of what Batman should be all about when he's not doing action. But otherwise, just lots of shoehorn into Sony VR, and it is what it is. Sony grade.
I thought they did good. They did a good job.
Yeah.
But there was also things that I personally was not interested in. So
Yeah.
I thought they put on a good show, good variety of games, good games. That said, I don't have the means to play some of these games, and others I don't care about.
Yep.
So they were one of the best of the show, if not the best of the entire show.
I rate it good out of good.
Good.
Okay. And then that kind of brings us full circle to the last segment of the podcast. We're going to talk about Nintendo, which, luckily for us, there's only one real game to talk about. Before we jump into that, did you want to touch on Pokemon at all? Is there much to say about it?
Yeah, I want to talk about Pokemon, both Pokemons. But before I do that, I will say that Nintendo, people are quick to give E3 grades, I mean, we're taking the piss out of it a little bit, but people are like, oh, well, who had the best of the show? Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo? Who of the big three did the best? Nintendo opted out this year.
Yeah.
They didn't do a direct. They specifically did not show the NX. I was very disappointed about that at first. And I, wanted more info on the NX, but it's for whatever reason, they wanted to focus on Zelda and 3DS.
Okay.
So I feel like they are not in a competition, and they specifically did that by doing Treehouse for 2 days with no presentation, no direct.
Okay. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I was okay with that.
It's smart because they took a year off. That said, their booth for Zelda was super extravagant.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely insane what they did with that booth. So I'll say that first.
For them to go from knowing almost nothing about Zelda, we got a short gameplay clip last year, and just extremely little information, to going to a literally full day of Zelda. Like nothing but Zelda almost all day, other than that bit of Pokemon and that massive ass booth. You're right. The extravagance just punches you in the face, going from 0 to 6,000 in about like 10 seconds.
So speaking of going that fast, before we jump to Zelda, I will say that Pokemon Sun and Moon look good. The region looks good. The people are now people-sized. The Pokemon look good. The animations look good. There's some new graphic stuff. Generally, it's very much Pokemon. Yeah. It's very much Pokemon X and Y. Some people are disappointed because there is more information during the battles now. Like, you can see what moves will be effective as you do the moves. Yeah,
which I don't have a problem with it, I mean, because I understand what they're saying, like, oh, you should have to memorize that shit, like a hardcore gamer.
Sure.
But to me, that is not effectively, or it's not functionally any different than printing out a weakness and strength chart and just referencing it with every battle, which I'm sure a lot of people do until they have it memorized anyway. It just, I don't know. I don't think it really changes the game that much to have that in there.
It doesn't show you their effectiveness until you use the move on that Pokemon.
Correct.
So it's like if you memorize this kind of stuff, then good for you. I have a shit memory, and I think I understand the argument to both sides. And here's the thing. For me, it's better. For a lot of other people, it's just more casual. And I get your pain. Trust me, I do. I understand it. But for me, I'm okay with that change. And it seems like such a minor thing, but I was aware of there being a minor shitstorm about it, so that's why I wanted to touch on it.
No, I actually I like it. I like that change, because I was never so into Pokemon that I wanted to memorize each one, but I couldn't be arsed to like look up a weakness and strengths chart every time either. So for me, it works well because it encourages me to experiment, and then I don't have to memorize. I can figure it out for myself and say, oh, that was weak against it, and then I never have to make that mistake again because I didn't commit it to memory.
Right.
And to me, that's not, committing that stuff to memory is not what makes Pokemon interesting to me.
Right.
So
It was, but again, the showing for it was good, and I'm definitely gonna pick it up. Which one I don't know, but Pokemon S&M, what they did show, was it was good, and I'm interested. Pokemon Go, on the other hand, did nothing for me. They demonstrated it today. It's basically you walk around. There's no battles. You put spin on your ball. You collect the thing. There's some wonky, weird stuff with the AR, and you spend money on a little vibrating button. I think it's $30. I think they said it was $35 actually. I'm not sure if the app itself is free, but if you want that little Pokemon pin that vibrates and beeps when a Pokemon's nearby, you have to spend like, $35. It looked very shallow, and then you can if you catch like 15 Bulbasaurs, then you can evolve a Bulbasaur.
Yeah,
that's how it works. But you can't fight. You just collect.
Well,
so,
go on.
Thanks. It just didn't do anything for me.
Well, nothing. Pokemon Go is developed by Niantic Inc., who they are the developers of an ARG-type game called Ingress. Have you heard of Ingress?
No.
Pokemon Go is Ingress. It's pretty much Ingress with a Pokemon skin on it, which I think explains a lot of the incongruity, if that's even a real word, the incongruousness of Pokemon to that medium is because they pretty much took the idea behind Ingress and just put Pokemon on it. Which, it's kind of interesting. It's something different. It's something social, something different to bring to the table for Pokemon. But it's
social, and it keeps you active.
Yeah, but
you're
it's not
walking, you're moving.
It's not designed for some of a large part of the elements of Pokemon, which is why what you said is true about how there's no battling. It's just kind of walking around and catching things. And the fact that it tailors itself to your real world environment and stuff, that's the immersive side to a lot of people. That being said, I'm not too interested in it really. Like even Ingress doesn't really interest me too much. But yeah, I don't know. Not too much to say about it. About the new Pokemon, just Sun and Moon. It's more Pokemon. I mean, we've talked on previous episodes. I've expounded at length how I would fix Pokemon or things that they could do to change it up. They still haven't fixed HMs, which for me personally is a broken ass system. I know most people are fine with it. This is just me being weird and picky. But as long as that system is in place, I'll always feel a little iffy playing a Pokemon game. Because it's I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. But
yeah,
it's more of the same. They announced the arena battles where you could, had a 4-way free-for-all, which I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, but otherwise, it's another Pokemon game. I find it hard to understand how a lot of people can lose their shit over it when it really is just another. It's more of the same. It doesn't change too much over the years other than introducing new ones, new regions, but I don't know, more of the same.
Yeah, it's more of the same, exactly. And that's what we talked about the differences. I won't go into the full kind of like details of what people want. You know, like they want the same, but they want a little bit different. Zelda did something very different. We're going to talk about that in a second, but it also has elements of Zelda.
Yeah.
But I will say that Pokemon did exactly the same with some minor differences. And I think that's just what they do for Pokemon. That's just what they do. And we're not going to see too much of a huge change. So the two Pokemon games, played it safe, and Go is more casual. Today they showed a bunch of 3DS games like Ever Oasis, I think is the name of it, which is developed by Grezzo, and it looks pretty good. I'd say I'm interested in that. I know you haven't seen that, but looks like Fantasy Life meets Zelda meets Final Fantasy Explorers.
That's the new one that they were saying they were going to announce today. Is that
was their new IP?
Okay.
Yeah. And it looks good. It's got like town building and management, so I'm interested in that. The new Mario Party had some cool things about it. Still no online. Everyone takes a turn at the same time. There's no car, and there's a bunch of different modes. And there's a mode where you play as 4 Toads. So, I mean, okay. I don't know what to say. It looks like Mario Party with some minor differences.
No more shitty clown car that everyone has to ride in together, so that's nice.
And then the other 3DS games they showed, I think Rhythm Heaven and
Yep.
something else.
I'm-
Yokai Watch 2.
I'm gonna be downloading Rhythm Heaven right after this podcast, I think, because I've never played a Rhythm Heaven game. Everyone's always told me I'd really enjoy it, and this seems like just the right opportunity to get into it. So, because it has like all the classics from the old games and a couple new ones, and it just the timing's right. I'm totally picking it up as soon as this podcast is done, and I'll play a little bit before bed.
Cool. So
Yeah.
then let's get to the end of the podcast. I guess we're saving the best in some ways, for me at least, for last, and also probably something that we could talk about for a long time. But let's try to get through it. And
It was the best for me too. We could talk more deeper impressions after it's stewed for a bit next week, but first impressions, Zelda Breath of the Wild. How did you feel about Zelda, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild?
it was a breath of fresh ass. It was a good trailer.
Yeah,
It was a good trailer.
very good trailer.
The trailer was very well put together for me. Like, it showed the environments and
Yeah.
what the game is going to be about.
Yeah.
And then it's crazy because even though that's the only Wii U game they showed, or only anything they showed really, I was engrossed for most of the treehouse while they just showed hours of gameplay footage.
Yeah, which I watched a good chunk of, like maybe an hour, 2 hours or so. I watched it intensely during the first demo of it, like when Link wakes up, gets into the game proper, and I was just floored. Then I put it on my second monitor when I realized they were going to be showing it all day because I didn't want to spoil too much of it myself. And now I was happy with almost everything I saw, but I almost wish they had just shown the trailer and said we'll reveal more later. Because the trailer was so good, and it showed us enough that we got a pretty decent sense of what the game would be like. And imagine how much of a shock it would be if down the road they come out with a little bit deeper of a gameplay demo where they show some of the things that they showed during the treehouse, rather than just like full blast 6-7 hours of Zelda. It took out a little bit of the mystery for me. I'm still really hyped because to me it feels like they're finally breaking the cycle or changing something up, and kind of going back to roots. It definitely had a Zelda 1 vibe to it, be able to go wherever you want. But it did lose a little bit of the hype just having that high saturation of it on the very first day there.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. Like, here's what I'm going to show you. I found something.
Okay.
That you might want to take a look at while we're talking. It's the size of the map, generally, and you get to see, like, you're in this small little location, and then they zoom out, and it's fucking huge. So one of the reasons I don't mind the massive amount of gameplay that we saw is that they specifically kept you either out of an area with towns and NPCs and story,
or
they removed it specifically. Bill Trinan confirmed dungeons are in the game, towns are in the game, NPCs are in the game. What we saw was a very small, like 10% of the map where it's just open wild, and watching. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you keep going. Watching.
No, I was just gonna say it just felt like it was just like a sandbox, and we got to watch people play in a sandbox for a little while.
I agree. Now here's a question you need to ask yourself. And I agree with you 100%. I think people complaining that's too empty and yada yada yada. Clearly there's going to be some towns, clearly there's going to be some dungeons, clearly they just wanted to kind of show the engine a bit and get a little bit of sense of the gameplay. So no shit, the world kind of felt empty. They weren't going to, blow any kind of load on that end. They just wanted to get the gameplay into our hands, basically, because it's so different, and they think we really need to acclimatize to that for Zelda, or else we're going to go into a coma. But here's my question for you. Does the world need to be that large to pull off what they're trying to pull?
No.
That's I think that's my only issue with it, because I have a feeling if the world wasn't that large, if it was still as open and free form, but they just scaled it down so there was less empty space from thing to thing, then they would have it just as effective as what they're going for, it would solve almost every minor problem I have with it. That's the large thing. If they had fixed that one thing, I think that would fix almost everything that I had an issue with. And I think it would be that way for a lot of people too. I don't think the world needs to be quite that large. I mean, it's exciting that the world's that large, and I love how open it is. But if they just condensed it a bit, made it more dense rather than expansive,
Yeah, and that's like the same thing we talked about with Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yes.
There's a huge issue with like what is there to do in between things.
Yeah.
Which I think this game will probably end up being a little bit better off, because it'll be more like, for me, I get a strong Skyrim like kind of feel where you pick a direction, you just find a shrine or a treasure chest accidentally, or you find an encampment and then there's an ingredient.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's possible that it could be condensed. I would be more okay with a condensed version, but expansive is fine as long as it's done right, and maybe this will be done right. I have my hopes up for it.
It's a little hard to tell. It is because of the demo, because the style of the demo very very cold from the rest of the game's content. Clearly a very small region with a lot taken out. I think there's going to be more taken out than a lot of people expect. When they get the final game, there's a lot. They're going to say, wow, a lot of this was taken out of the demo, and they're going to realize. But largely, I was excited. I was very excited because, like I mentioned earlier, it definitely feels a lot like Zelda 1. To the point where there's clearly a lot of throwbacks in like the logos. They took the original NES font for the Japanese cover art. Have you seen that?
No.
Look up the Japanese logo or the Japanese title screen or whatever you want to call it for Breath of the Wild, and compare it to the NES art with that title, and it's like pretty much 100% the same. They were going for Zelda 1 with the Z in Zelda having the Master Sword through the center, straight up and down. That was clearly a throwback to Link to the Past, which again, that's another good example of a game that had a lot to do and a lot you could explore with a relatively small overworld. That was a dense game. You would go from town to town to interest point just in a matter of a couple of screens, so you could still explore and it would pay off quickly, Yeah. This is going to be more slow burn if the demo is any indication, where you got to spend a lot of time like scaling mountains and really seeking out those treasures, which, is really exciting in some ways, but also could potentially be dull in others, so it's hard to say.
I've heard some have said that, or I don't know, maybe it was Treehouse or something, but that you could like start the game and then just head towards Ganon. And then, like real early on, you can like find ways to complete the game early.
Early.
Or like fight Ganon early and actually like end up getting your ass totally handed to you.
Yeah,
like
maybe
completely handed.
It's like how they showed the Guardians that would do like 7 hearts of damage if you didn't have, like with your standard beginning game armor. Maybe that's the overall design. Is Ganon, you can face him. This would be awesome, by the way, and I'm just totally speculating. This probably is not the case. But how awesome would it be if, like what you said is true, you can go kind of find a way and face Ganon as early as you want to, or relatively early, somewhere near the beginning. And your odds against him are purely based on how well you prepared, based on what you explored on the overworld. Maybe the big dungeons, maybe for everyone you complete, Ganon's defenses are less. It's like in Dark Souls. Yeah, it's like in Dark Souls 2. For every giant you would slay, this one optional boss, his defense would have. So like he would have 32 times defense without any giant slayed. You'd slay one, it would go down to 16 times, then down to 8, then down to 4, then down to 2, and then finally normal defense. Could be something like that. It could be something where the items that you get in the dungeons could interact with the Ganon fight in some way to make it easier. That could be the armor that you get, that you have to spend forever seeking out in the corners of the map and getting everything done to get, is the only way that you can fight him without dying in one hit. There's so many ways they could do what you just said and have it be awesome, Yeah.
And we don't know yet. That's the thing. We have no idea how it's going to go. But I do like the open-ended approach, because Zelda 1, you could attack the dungeons in different orders. You can get items when, you know, some of the items you can get early. Some of the stuff was locked behind, like you need a raft to get to this particular dungeon.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about this game. It really, I was just captivated. First of all, the art style is flawless for what they have. Okay, the execution of what they attempted worked. They did it. I understand where the attempt was. It was like a mash of, in some ways, Skyward Sword and Wind Waker, and also even a little bit of Twilight Princess. And for me, it works completely. I think the particle effects and the animations are absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
The physics are fantastic. All the little things that happen, like the wind, the fire blowing onto grass and setting the grass on fire.
Goodness.
The trees getting chopped down and like forming a makeshift bridge that will fall if it's not done properly.
Yep.
Link's hitboxes, by the way, are really
tight.
On point.
Yeah, I saw that GIF that has been going around of the moblin swinging its club and literally missing Link by an inch. And
and they're calling it hitbox porn.
Yeah, yeah, it was really impressive. I like that a lot.
So why does a game like this excite people so much, myself included? Is it because it's a loaded game with the name Zelda? Why does this excite people, whereas games like Horizon, or even, you know, certain other games in the past that have done stuff like this, like Dragon's Dogma in some ways or whatever, don't have a similar effect? Why are people losing their shit over something that's already been done by a number of other games?
It's largely context. When we think Zelda, we expect a linear experience these days. We've gotten it for the last 3, 4, even arguably 5 by some people entries in a row in Zelda. Depending on if you're counting like handhelds and whatnot. And
Skyward was really linear.
Oh yeah, super linear, and it was super handholdy too.
Yeah,
which was almost a bigger, to me, it was a bigger offense. I was okay with the linearity.
2-hour intro.
Yeah, I was okay with a lot of the linearity, even if it's not the reason I fell in love with Zelda. And I would certainly consider like Zelda 1 and Zelda 3 to be better games because of that. Because it was more explory and not handholdy at all in the case of Zelda 1. They pretty much just put you in the world, said, you know, have fun.
Dude, even Link to the Past had so once you got into the world, like you know, you would go through a little bit of an intro, but there was still a feeling of exploration. You're still in this world alone, and it was really, for me when I was a kid, it was a breakthrough in gaming. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and so to answer your question, it's largely context. To see Zelda break out and try something different, even if it's a lot of the elements are straight out of other games or could be found in other games, to have see them try to update Zelda and bring it into the modern age, for like finally, you know, it's definitely refreshing. And like I said, it reminds me so much of Zelda 1, and to me that's exciting because of what Zelda 1 is. It's a lot of games have not come close to that kind of design in a really long time.
Or have attempted it in the same way.
Yeah. I wanted to point out, by the way, that you can... Sorry, I'm totally interrupting you all the time.
No, please. I interrupt too.
I noticed in the gameplay you can actually see, because I was going back and watching a little bit, you can actually see a castle shrouded in darkness, like a red kind of darkness in the background. I'm assuming that might be Ganon, might be Hyrule Castle taken over by Ganon, or who knows what. So I imagine you could head straight to that. I don't know if you can get in right away. It might just lock you out or whatever. But
it's maybe, you know, something like that. And then there's also like a UFO in the sky, which I think is a floating island. But people have noticed a number of things in the distance that seems very peculiar.
Right. Probably can't get to it without the hook shot or something.
Maybe, or maybe something we don't even know about. So the game looks expansive. It is making my imagination very curious. I want to go back very, very quickly to the why does this game do it and people lose their shit, because a number of people that I follow on Twitter, someone like JonTron, for example, I noticed he's not all that sold. He's like, what about green fields do we care about? Why is this exciting for people? And the thing for me about it that's exciting is the quality of Zelda, the lore of Zelda, seeing a Korok, for example, and oh shit, I haven't seen those since Wind Waker. So it makes people wonder, what's the lore going to be? The world looks beautiful, the art style is beautiful, and here's what really, for me, makes this game special is the level of polish that you come to expect from a Zelda game or a Nintendo game. Not only are we getting an open world, but we're getting an open world with that minute level of detail and care that you come to expect from Nintendo. This is their most ambitious project probably ever.
Yeah.
And seeing it attempted and then seeing it succeed in such a way with
hopefully
fine form and fashion. I mean, in terms of like a visual presentation, trailer
as a first impression, yeah.
As a first impression, it's really impressive, and I have to say I'm really itching to get my hands on this game and just to explore. I just want to look around, just explore, find things. It made me, like, when I was a kid, I used to have my imagination, like, Zelda was 8-bit and the cartoon, obviously, but for me, like, I thought like about going into these haunted forests and finding treasure chests. That was what was fun about Zelda. The sense of exploration and discovery, and like all this like castles and dungeons. It's fun, and it started to get like funneled. So my imagination was, as I got older, not only was the imagination lessening, but the sense of exploration and the freedom was also lessening, to the point where you play Skyward Sword and you get a little bit of freedom here and there, but it was more like, you're going through these action set pieces and these dungeons where you have to solve this a certain way and do it the way we want you to, and do the combat the way we want you to. This game, there's different armor, there's different weapons, something I've wanted for a long time. The different shields, different techniques. There's a jump, there's a climb function. The verticality is now added where you can actually go places based on your movement.
That's huge.
I mean, it's a vast game that looks like the gameplay is really good. There's over 100 shrines. There's different moves that you use, like Magnesis, that looks really interesting.
And interesting, too, that those bits came from shrines. Like the Magnesis, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a dungeon item or is that a shrine item?
That's a shrine item.
So to have over 100 shrines and have one of them contain something like that magnet item, which you would expect as a full-blown item in any of the other Zeldas. Interesting. I don't know how many shrines are going to contain
contain items, right?
Yeah, such a heavy ass item like that. But wow.
Maybe some shrines have heart pieces, or weapons. I mean, one thing that I'm weird about, and this is something that, again, we're going to wrap up soon, but weapon durability is now a thing, and it's like, I like to grow an attachment to my weapons in Zelda games in some ways. I like being able to cycle because it varies the gameplay. It makes you think on your feet. And I like the idea that you have to constantly check out new weapons. But I'm hoping for some weapons that don't break, so that way you can use those reliably. Maybe they'll be weaker, but I would prefer if it was like that.
Now, did you feel any of the elements that they showed were extraneous, like the temperature thing going on, or the little stealthy, sneaky sound meter? How did you feel about those personally?
Well, I felt the same way about those as I felt about like the binoculars.
Okay.
Where like it was like you could tag enemies like Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, it's.
I was like, okay, so now I have an element of what did I like about MGS5 was going to these little bases, tagging enemies, and approaching the enemies in a way that I wanted to. So if I can do that in the new Zelda with a little bit of stealth, then that stealth meter is absolutely justified.
Yeah, imagine.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, imagine that element in a segment of the gameplay that was like the Gerudo Fortress from Ocarina of Time. Imagine what they could do, man.
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say about the weather?
The weather seems a little a trifle, maybe like it doesn't feel like it's necessary at the moment. I'm assuming it'll have more, because you just got to wear a different set of clothes when you get to the ice area.
Yeah.
So we don't know too much about what kind of weather stuff we're going to see. That said, wind and rain and all that stuff, the way it affects fire and the environment, that's going to be interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So, man, the
items look cool. Everything looks cool so far.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm excited to see more. I'm excited to get the final game in my hands, and who knows when. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a demo, a downloadable demo of kind of what they showed at E3, just, scaled down, or maybe with like some hard restrictions on where you can go sometime before launch.
Could happen, but it was also, I think you worry about people like burning themselves out on the
Yeah.
demo.
Yeah.
So there would have to be a very like tight restriction.
That's true. Um, I think I want to say there's more about Zelda. I'm trying to think of what though. I think I'm excited. I'm optimistic. If nothing else, I'm so glad that they're changing the formula. I'm so glad that they're trying something different. Whether it's like the way I described earlier, where you can tackle Ganon at any time, and it's up to you to explore the world to prepare for that, or whether it is more linear than it looks. Like I was saying in chat earlier, how it could be a thing where you have access to that one region until you beat its main dungeon, and then it opens up a new region for you to travel to, and then you can beat a one main dungeon per region before you can.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That kind of thing. So it's kind of a hybrid between open world but still surprisingly linear. Kind of like, I guess that would kind of be more like a Link to the Past, where when you think about the Dark World when you first get there, you have like one, maybe two dungeons you can go to right off the bat. You can try to go to the others, but you quickly find you're kind of blocked off. It's not the game saying not to go there yet, but just it's designed so that you can't go there yet. So you feel it's your duty to explore and figure out what you need to get there. Whereas later Zeldas, they say, okay, this is your next dungeon. Go there. And you have to do it, and there is no other choice. So to me, the new one could be like that, where you're required to get certain items just to get to certain parts of the world, and you can throw yourself up against that wall and you can go there yourself and then have to realize that I need to go back and find something else before I can continue this way. That would be fine, because it would continue the open world style that they're attempting. It would kind of be a throwback to like a Link to the Past, where you need the hammer to get by, that one set of that one barrier, but once you do, you have like 3 more dungeons open to you. You know what I mean?
Right. You have more
they can
options.
Gate it without it being 100% linear, and this is a good opportunity to do that. Whether they do a more linear, less linear, I don't care. I'm just glad that they're trying something different. So, and I'm optimistic about it.
Yes, and I don't think, like, aside from going into the lore and the very specific gameplay mechanics, just generally, this was my game of the show. And I was just very, very happy with it. And it's weird because even though they only had one game, they still managed to make me more involved and invested in this one game than, say, 5 games.
Yep.
Or 6 games. So I'm glad they, in some ways I'm sad that we didn't get to see more, but at least it's a really detailed, great game. And I enjoyed the treehouse stuff.
Yeah.
I'm okay if it's a little linear here and there. And I'm even okay if it has that formula, like you said, as long as it's wide enough and open enough that I get to explore and fuck around and have fun. I'm just hoping, again, there's going to be a lot of enemy types, a lot of different types of ways to take them out.
Yep.
And if that's the case, then I think this game is going to be fantastic. So I'm really excited. Also, I'm pretty sure one of the presenters said possibilities.
Yep.
And
I heard it.
The other thing is, did you know that corruptions were at E3?
Yeah, I heard that they showed that your Sesame Street corruptions video during a glitches segment on who knows what's coverage of E3.
Who knows exactly? I have no idea whose coverage, but yeah,
really cool, and that really hypes me the hell out. I had nothing to do with that footage, that the corruptions there, but it's a part of Vinesauce history, I guess. So as a Vinesaucer, for me, that's super goddamn exciting, and I'm so happy that they did that.
Yeah, maybe one year we can go to E3 together, and
maybe one year
it.
They'll get your permission to use your content before using it in their content, I guess. But
yeah, or maybe one year Nintendo won't hate me for trying to play their games in a broken manner, and they'll invite me. But until that happens, we can settle for someone saying possibilities and another person showing 13 seconds of a glitch compilation, including corruptions. So anyway, that's my E3. I mean, do you want to talk anything else about Zelda, or are you feeling like we covered?
I think we hit most of it. We'll probably revisit it in a week or two after it's stewed for a bit.
Yeah.
I think I'd be down for that. I'll say I agree with you that my games of E3 were Zelda and the Grow Home sequel, just because that game means so much to me. So to have a sequel to that is huge, even if they didn't show much of it. So those are my 2 games of E3, were Grow Up and Zelda.
Okay. So mine were Zelda, Just Dance, Division DLC, and Lego Farquad, which is just a game based on Shrek Farquad character.
Play
And it's
as
just
Farquaad.
Lego, it's Lego. And that's it. You go through his daily life in the castle.
You wear the PSVR headset and you watch Prompto and his crew fight the behemoth, but you are Farquaad.
Prompto.
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. Like, obviously, I talked about the things I liked already.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to reiterate very much, but I will say that Zelda stole the show for me, as I expected. Even though Nintendo has pissed me off and left, I was just one final thing. I was not very interested in Nintendo this E3. I knew Zelda was going to be there. I was like, okay, it's going to be Zelda.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to like it. I'm going to want it. But am I really that hyped? I was like, not really. But I have to say, my levels of interest have definitely grown over the past few days. So Nintendo did a good job with Zelda. E3 was pretty good, a little embarrassing here and there. I'm excited for Battlefield 1 just because I like to shoot things, despite me not wanting to shoot things in space. I don't mind shooting things in a trench. So that's my hypocrisy coming from, of course. But it was a good E3, and really it was fun. It was a good time of year, and I can't wait to see what happens next year. I hope the NX is a cool system, and I'm curious to see what Nintendo's gonna pull out of their butts for it next year. So
Yeah, man.
it was a good year, and it was a good recap. Thank you, KY, for recapping E3 with me this year.
Yeah, thank you, Vinny, for recapping E3 with me this year. It was fun.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a live cast next episode because this was 19. Next episode's the big 20. Where I think the plan is to do a live cast every 5th episode because that's a good increment. Nice and arbitrary. So we'll do that. We'll take questions from chat for a bit. We will do Greenlight Guess Live for a bit. So get your hashtag Greenlight Guesses in. If you don't know what it is, listen to the previous episodes. You'll figure it out. I'd say roughly 2-3 weeks from now we'll do that. So be on the lookout on the Twitter for the official date for the live cast. As always, it's going to be broadcasted. Did you want to do it on your channel this time, or you want to stick on mine? Up to you.
We can do both if you want.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. Whatever.
So yeah, we'll do it either twitch.tv/livebyfoma, FOMA, or twitch.tv/vinesauce. We'll do one or both of those. Just have an eye on the Twitter. We'll give you the deets. I guess that's it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I have one final thing to say, and it is that we are shit at keeping to a strict schedule.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.